Hey, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being there. Good morning once again. My name is Day. I'm C1 in your PwC. I'll be the anchor for today. Welcome. Hey, on behalf of PwC Nigeria, it's my pleasure to welcome you all to our annual Whistleblowing webinar 2026. Today, the 23rd of June, is recognized globally as World Whistleblowers Day, a day dedicated to recognizing the important role that whistleblowers play in promoting accountability, transparency, and integrity across both public and private institutions. At its core, whistleblowing is about something very simple: ensuring that people can speak up when something is wrong. Yet, as simple as the idea sounds, it raises some difficult questions, which include: will people report wrongdoing if they fear retaliation? Will organizations act on reports when they're received? And can a reporting system be effective if those expected to use it do not trust it? And so, there are some key things we need to look at today. Last year, we hosted the first edition of this event, where we explored bridging the trust gap in the whistleblowing protection framework. This year, we're taking that conversation a step further by examining what the future of whistleblowing in Nigeria may look like and what must happen to get us there. Our first panel session today will focus on the state of Nigeria's whistleblowing bill. Nearly a decade after Nigeria's whistleblowing policy was introduced, the conversation around whistleblower protection remains important as ever. What progress has been made towards legislative reform? An important question. What challenges have delayed it? And if the bill is enacted, what practical differences will it make? Our panelists will help us in demystifying this concept. Our second panel will move from policy into practice, exploring how whistleblowing systems should be designed, managed, and governed. What are the makings of a reporting systems employees and stakeholders genuinely trust? What role does independence play? And how should organizations think about balance between internally managed and externally hosted reporting systems or arrangements? We are privileged to have an outstanding group of speakers here today and guests present in the room and online. And we encourage everyone to participate, both online and in the room, to engage actively throughout the session. And we'll be taking questions from attendees online, as well as our clients and our guests who are present in the room. Thank you once again for joining us. And with that, it is my pleasure to hand over to the host partner, the head of Enterprise Risk and ESG Services, PwC Nigeria, Chioma Obaro. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Jide. And once again, good morning. For those that haven't met privately one-on-one, you're welcome. We're excited to see you all. Those online as well, good morning and welcome. On behalf of our Enterprise Risk and ESG business unit, within which our forensic services team sits, I'm delighted to welcome you to today's World Whistleblowing webinar. Whistleblowing remains one of the most effective tools for identifying misconduct, protecting organizational integrity, and strengthening public confidence in institutions, whether in the public or private sector. The ability of individuals to raise concerns safely and confidently is essential to good governance and accountability. This year, our conversation is going to focus on two specific and relevant questions. One, what is the current state of Nigeria's whistleblowing bill? And two, how do organizations structure themselves to inspire confidence and credibility? So first, we will be examining the current status of Nigeria's whistleblowing bill and what its progress means for the development of a stronger legal framework for whistleblower protection. Secondly, we will also explore an issue many organizations are actively grappling with: how whistleblowing systems should be structured to inspire confidence and credibility. In particular, we will consider the role of internally managed systems and the value that independent external handling can bring in matters involving sensitive or high-risk allegations. Now, these two conversations are closely connected. As Nigeria's policy framework continues to evolve, organizations cannot afford to wait. Employees, regulators, investors, and other stakeholders now expect more than the existence of a reporting channel. They expect systems that protect confidentiality, demonstrate independence, and result in fair and credible outcomes. We are honored to be joined by an outstanding group of speakers representing legislature, civil society, and corporate leadership. Delivering our keynote address is no other than the Honorable Akin Rotimi, spokesman of the Federal House of Representatives and current sponsor of the Whistleblowing Bill. And we welcome Mr. Private House. And understand the joining of virtually. You're welcome, sir. Also joining our conversation today, we have Godwin Onyacholo, Program Manager at the African Center for Media and Information Literacy, one of the leading voices. Please,
Thank you,
one of the leading voices championing comprehensive whistleblower protection in Nigeria. Next, we have Tinoade Awe. Yes. Please let one come up. No, not trying. Tinoade is the CEO of TMSN Limited and one of the forerunners of the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance and Whistleblowing Standards on the Nigerian Exchange Group. Next, we have Abigail Dwakama Obomano. Abigail.
Welcome back.
Abigail is the Chief Compliance Officer at Union Bank, who, among other compliance-related activities, leads the bank's whistleblowing function. And last but not the least, it gives me great pleasure to welcome our very own Ayola Adekunle. The Director in President House Super, and he also heads our forensic services team with PwC. The diverse perspectives of our speakers would help us better understand both the policy direction and the practical realities shaping whistleblowing in Nigeria today. And so I encourage everyone to participate actively and reflect around what these issues would mean for your own organizations. I thank our speakers in advance for sharing your insights, and I look forward to really engaging and rewarding session. For our speakers participants online and the speaker as well, thank you for joining us, and please let's enjoy today.
Thank you very much, Joma. Thank you so much. And with that, we declare today's session open. Many thanks, ladies and gentlemen. Our keynote address will be given by Honorable Akin Rotimi. But before we start with that, it's very important to talk about him a bit so we can understand the value of the delivery as he speaks to us. Honorable Akin Rotimi is a distinguished Nigerian parliamentarian, strategic communications expert, public policy professional, and developmental strategist. He currently represents Ekiti North constituency in the House of Representatives and serves as the chairman of the House Special Committee on Media and Public Affairs, as well as the spokesman of the 10th Assembly. In his role, he manages the reputation and communications of the House, shaping the narrative around its and priorities. Yes, and a key role in promoting transparency and accountability within the House. He is committed to ensuring the legislative process is accessible and meaningful to Nigerians, reinforcing public trust in parliamentary affairs. He was a member of the House Ad hoc Committee that developed the legislative agenda of the 10th Assembly and is central to implementing its provisions, particularly on open governance and strengthening faith in the legislation. He earned a bachelor's degree in geography from the University of Ibadan, where he led student initiatives. His education continued with a master's in diplomacy and strategic studies from the University of Lagos, a postgraduate diploma in public relations from Mohawk College, Canada, and certifications from Harvard University. Thank you once as Georgetown University, Edmund Walsh School of Foreign Service, the United States Institute of Peace, and Pan Atlantic University, showcasing his commitment to effective governance. Well read. Thank you once. His legislative and public service career reflects a strong commitment to social justice and inclusivity, a steadfast advocate for women, persons with disabilities, and marginalized communities. He has championed equitable policies and media freedoms. His legislative philosophy to build a kinder society where no one is left behind. I'll take that again. To build a kinder society where no one is left behind. Drives his work, including his sponsorship of bills aimed at societal progress. Before his election to the House, he served in significant advisory roles, including as special advisor and principal private secretary to the former Ekiti State governor. He contributed to Ekiti State's policy framework, authoring the Ekiti Charter of Values and coordinating state branding efforts. He also served as special advisor on investment formations to the Minister of Mines and Steel Development, helping develop the sector's 20-year roadmap for growth. In 2020, he served on the Ekiti State's judicial panel and police brutality, popularly known as NSAS, reinforcing the state's commitment to accountability. As one of Nigeria's leading young parliamentarians, he exemplifies integrity, strategic vision, and effective public service, inspiring a new generation of Nigerians to pursue leadership in the national interest. Please make welcome Honorable Akin Rotimi, spokesman of the Federal House of Representatives, and the sponsor of the Whistleblowing Bill based in the vote. Thank you very much. Thank you once.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen.
Ladies and gentlemen. Thank you once.
There's some echo on.
There's some echo on.
Can the technical team try to fix that? Okay. All right. Thank you very much, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I must first of all thank the management of PwC for the opportunity to, participate in this engagement. For us in the House of Representatives, we're always delighted to engage. It's always a privilege for us, especially when civil society and organizations like yours, go beyond the echo chamber of talking to yourselves, but actually get those in government, especially the parliament, involved in these sort of conversations, so that we can understand the issues and how to take things forward. I would have loved to personally be in attendance, but for the fact that I have some duties that have been assigned to me by Mr. Speaker, who sends his regards, Right Honorable Abbas Tajuddin, sends his regards, and is aware that we're also doing this today. Again, I would like to emphasize that we shouldn't look at this as a one-off. We should see it as an investment in an ongoing conversation, which is very important. I like to counsel all the time that we shouldn't see the legislature as an adversarial, in an adversarial sort of way. We should look at more ways to collaborate and see how to fix Nigeria. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and I'm honored to participate in this year's World Whistleblowing Day webinar and to commend PwC Nigeria for sustaining this important platform for dialogue on transparency, accountability, and institutional integrity. The theme, the future of whistleblowing in Nigeria, legislative progress and reporting pathways, speaks directly to one of the defining governance challenges, of our time. Corruption, of course, as we know, thrives in secrecy, while accountability flourishes when citizens can speak without fear. Every society committed to progress must therefore protect those who expose wrongdoing in the public interest, because whistleblowers strengthen institutions, safeguard public resources, and deepen democratic accountability. Now, Nigeria's governance journey continues to confront the challenge of corruption and institutional misconduct. And the consequences are well known now. Corruption weakens institutions, distorts resource allocation, undermines public service delivery, erodes public trust, and constrains national development. As a parliamentarian, I consider whistleblowers among democracy's earliest and most effective warning systems because they expose fraud, abuse of office, financial conduct, regulatory breaches, and threats to public safety before such incidences can cause deeper institutional damage. Their disclosures strengthen accountability and provide opportunities for timely corrective action. Now, the whistleblower protection is therefore a democratic imperative. Citizens must be encouraged to report wrongdoing while remaining, I beg your pardon. Whistleblower protection is therefore a democratic imperative. Citizens cannot be encouraged to report wrongdoing while remaining vulnerable to dismissal, intimidation, harassment, victimization, or other forms of retaliation. Any nation that punishes whistleblowers weakens its own capacity for self-correction, while every effective anti-corruption system protects those who speak out in the public interest. Now, in the light of this, Nigeria requires a comprehensive legal framework for whistleblowing. Such a framework must, number one, establish formal legal and institutional structures across both the private and public sectors, but especially the public sectors, of course. Provide clear procedures for receiving, assessing, investigating, and acting on disclosures, and guarantee statutory protection against reprisals. Number three, create structured reporting pathways with clearly assigned responsibilities and harmonize existing practices across agencies and sectors within a coordinated national system. Now, I'll just take you through, some milestones of Nigeria's efforts so far in terms of, whistleblower protection. For over a decade, as the moderator had rightly stated, Nigeria has pursued the establishment of a comprehensive whistleblower protection regime, albeit with gradual progress. A major milestone occurred on December 21, 2016, when the Federal Executive Council, under the late President Muhammadu Buhari, approved the Nigerian whistleblower policy as a stopgap measure pending enactment of legislation. The policy recorded notable successes, particularly in asset recovery and public awareness, but it also exposed significant gaps in legal protection for whistleblowers. Like we always say, and that's essentially the role of the legislature, we realize that policies sometimes is not enough without, appropriate legislation to be able to, strengthen the objectives that want to be achieved. Now, the 8th National Assembly passed the, what you call the Mutual Assistance in Criminal Matters Bill in May 2017. They also passed the Witness Protection Bill on 8th of June 2017, and also the Whistleblower Protection Bill on 19th July 2017. Now, those are related bills that also touch on issues of whistleblower protection. However, in the 8th Assembly, it didn't get much traction to eventual passage. As we know, one of the challenges that we have is that any bill that, doesn't pass in any particular assembly has, is status bad. In the next assembly has to either be reintroduced and, commence the journey again. Now, the Witness Protection and Management Bill, that's in the 9th Assembly. A new bill was also introduced called the Witness Protection and Management Bill 2022, which passed in the Senate on the 30th of March 2022 and was subsequently passed by the House of Representatives by way of concurrence on 7th May 2022. Now, further progress was recorded on 14th December 2022 when the Federal Executive Council approved the draft whistleblower bill for transmission to the National Assembly. So what you find is that in the 9th Assembly, considerable progress was made, right? However, which has been a trend, the executive, successive administrations of the executive arm of government have had a strong interest in this bill. So what you had is that even though the House and the Senate had passed this bill and forwarded it to the president for assent as far back as 2022, it didn't get, signed by the president, within the, limit, the period, I think about 30 days that is required for presidential assent. And instead of that, you can see from the trajectory that the president instead felt that, they had other ideas as to what should be contained in the bill, which is why they then sent an executive bill, which, on 14th of December, they approved a draft executive bill for the Whistleblowers Bill for transmission to the National Assembly with provisions designed to align with the proposed framework with existing laws, and also, of course, other extant provisions. Now, I'd like to explain this very clearly to show you what has happened so far. As far back as May 2022, right, both the House and the Senate in the Ninth Assembly had passed the Whistleblowers Bill, right? However, we didn't get presidential assent. And then the president came about 7 months later with his own version of the bill. However, unfortunately, for one reason or the other, it wasn't passed in the Ninth Assembly. Now, in terms of current legislative efforts, that's the 10th Assembly. As we know, we have one legislature, one assembly, but, 9th Assembly, 10th Assembly. The 10th Assembly resumed in June of 2023 and would be in force until June of 2027. So what have we done so far? As far as the House is concerned, the Whistleblower Protection Bill, was considered a legislative priority. We have the legislative agenda of the House of Representatives, which we crafted about 1 month into the life of this assembly. I will encourage everyone to get a copy of that legislative agenda, because these are the things that we committed to doing. These are things that we listen to people, stakeholders across board, and developed a legislative agenda and made certain promises and commitments. And we always encourage civil society and others that hold us to account based on, so what you'll find in that bill is that under our strengthening good governance, that's Agenda 1, as part of efforts to deepen anti-corruption and legislative oversight, we have the Whistleblowers Bill mentioned. The House committed to passing the Whistleblowers Bill. Now, the second point again is under Agenda 2, improving national security. We also mentioned the Whistleblowers Bill and made certain commitments, particularly to encourage disclosures relating to financial misconduct, abuse, especially as it touches on national security. Now, in furtherance of this bill, of these priorities, by God's grace, I was the one that sponsored the Whistleblowers Bill 2024, which is HB 1563, which is a bill for an act to provide a legal framework for whistleblowing and the protection of whistleblowers, establish the National Office for the Management of Whistleblowing and for related matters. Now, subsequently, I also sponsored a bill that touched a bit on whistleblowing, which is an amendment to the Cyber Crimes Act, prohibition and prevention of cyber crimes. Now, these proposals seek, among other objectives, to provide explicit protections for journalists and whistleblowers acting in the public interest, strengthen judicial oversight, and safeguard constitutional freedoms in the digital environment. Now, I must also mention what is happening in the Senate so we have a clearer picture of this. In the Senate, as far back as November 2023, the Senate leader, Senator Michael Okoye-Bamidele, reintroduced the Whistleblowers Protection Bill. Now, so what you see is that if a bill per the House and the Senate, this House rules and the Senate audits, if a bill passes in the preceding assembly, right, the House and the Senate rules allow for a bill to be reintroduced without having to go through the long process of a public hearing and all of that. It can go straight from, having been listed for first reading all the way to committal. So that is the situation right now. We have a bill in the House and we have the bill in the Senate. Now, you would ask that, what are the factors influencing the pace of progress on these bills? Because I said now, both bills in the House and the Senate are both still at first reading, and which should raise a bit of concern for all actors, which is why this conversation is very necessary. Now, essentially, remember that I told you that in the Ninth Assembly, even though the bills had passed in both the House and the Senate, it got to the executive and it sort of stalled because the executive had other ideas as to what should be in the provisions of the bill. So for us, in order to preempt this and ensure that we don't have that back and forth, right, there's been a lot of engagement with the executive. And you realize that as far back as August 2024, the immediate past Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edu, had disclosed that the draft executive bill had also been approved, was also being reviewed within the presidency, for committal to the National Assembly. So just picture this in very layman terms. We want to send a bill to the president for assent. However, we realize that based on policy pronouncements and engagements that we have with the executive, they also have an interest in this whistleblowers bill and, have the intention of transmitting that to the National Assembly for consideration. So instead of going through that back and forth, it's to engage with and prevent what happened in the Ninth Assembly. There's a need for very robust conversations between the legislature and key actors in the federal government to expedite the executive bill coming in. So when that comes in, it can be harmonized with the provisions of the existing bills in both the House and the Senate, to be able to have a unified bill that can get progress through the legislative process. And you are almost sure that since the executive has been part of the process of developing it, right, it will have more or less seamless, assent by the time it gets to the president. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude these remarks, I must emphasize that government must, within the course of the life of this assembly, which expires next year, June 2027, that's this assembly. Of course, we know the first tenure of this president ends in May, but the life of this assembly ends June 12, 2027. It's an imperative for all of us, both those of us in the legislature, the executive, civil society, and other actors like your good selves, to ensure that we enact robust legal protections for whistleblowers, public institutions, and also establish credible, secure, and accessible reporting systems. While, of course, the private sector must also strengthen internal accountability mechanisms and cultivate cultures that encourage ethical conduct. Civil society and organizations like the PwC must sustain advocacy, public education, and citizen engagement. Citizens themselves must remain active partners in the defense of integrity, accountability, and public interest. The time has come to protect those who protect the public interest, for democracies to flourish in an environment where truth is protected. If we're to have a jurisdiction where people believe in us and people want to come and work and invest in our jurisdiction, we must have, very strong legal framework to ensure that if anybody sees anything, untoward, they're able to, be protected. Let us work together to build a whistleblowing ecosystem that rewards integrity, protects courage, and strengthens accountability across our institutions. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the summary of all that we're saying is that this remains a priority for the 10th Assembly House of Representatives, and I believe I speak for the entire National Assembly. It remains also a priority to the Senate and jointly the National Assembly. This remains a priority for us. What is required now at this time is for us to harmonize with the executive and make progress on this bill in the best interest of Nigerians. And that's why PwC's role in bringing all stakeholders together to again spotlight this event is very useful. It also puts us on our toes. When I got the invitation, the first thing I had to ask, those that work with me is that where are we on this bill? Because if we've been asked to give account of where we are on this bill, we need to be able to do that on authority. So more or less, we're more or less waiting on the executive to ensure that we harmonize with them and have a framework that is both acceptable to both the judiciary and this legislature. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the opportunity to share those thoughts, and we look forward to more sustained engagement, which would result. Remember, the objective that we all have is that within this next 12 months, this bill must pass. The challenges of everything going on, politics and elections and all of that sort of has a way of, slowing things down and all of that. But for us and all of us, all stakeholders, we must make sure that regardless of issues around politics and 2027 elections, we must keep this agenda on track to ensure that, because it's a bipartisan, multi-partisan imperative. It's something that is important to all parties. It's something that, so it can't be politicized in any way or made partisan in any way. It's something that's important to civil society, to legislators, to the media, to human rights, everyone must ensure that before we celebrate next year's Whistleblowers Day on the 23rd of June 2027, should be celebrating that this bill has been enacted. Thank you very much for the opportunity to engage.
Thank you very much, Honorable Akirotimi, for that wonderful keynote address. I think it's quite enlightening to understand and to get to know that a lot of work has been done, at the House and also at the Senate to ensure that this bill is passed. Like you said, by this time next year, we hope to be celebrating that this bill has been passed. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Honorable Akirotimi. We'll quickly move on to the first panel session of today, where we'll be discussing the state of Nigeria's whistleblowing bill. We have distinguished panelists that will be discussing some of the questions that I mentioned earlier, and hopefully deep dive into the general topic of it. So first on the list that will be coming up, our panelists is the governance communications strategist, journalist, and legislative affairs professional with over 15 years of experience in governance, communication, legislative accountability, public oversight, and democratic engagement. He currently serves as senior legislative aide, oversight matters spokesperson of the Nigeria's House of Representatives, Honorable Akirotimi, where he provides strategic advisory, policy communications, and oversight intelligence support on parliamentary transparency, public engagement, and institutional accountability. He also serves as managing editor of the Green Chamber Nigeria, a platform dedicated to legislative reporting and parliamentary engagement. Across his career, he has led and shaped several pioneering accountability and civic engagement initiatives within Nigeria's media and governance ecosystem through institutions such as Other Paper Nigeria, Why Nigeria, Why Monitor, and the Future Project, including Nigeria's first legislative-focused election situation road and the most valuable parliamentarian hall of faith. A graduate of the University of Benin with a background in international studies and diplomacy, and currently a postgraduate scholar in development communication. He is a member of the Nigerian Union of Journalists and other professional bodies advancing excellence in journalism, governance, and public accountability. His work continues to shape public discourse on legislative reforms, transparency, citizen-centered accountability, advancing stronger democratic institutions in Nigeria. Please make welcome our first panelist, Temidayo Taiwo Siddiq, Senior Legislative Aide, Chief House Spokesperson, Honorable PwC. Big on me. Coming up next, a journalist and whistleblower activist. He has been actively involved in journalism practice in Nigeria and Ghana for decades. He currently leads Corruption Anonymous, a whistleblowing and whistleblower protection advocacy project in African Center for Media and Information Literacy. He is passionate about promoting the speak-up culture and institutionalizing workplace free speech. He is also in the front row of civil society campaign for enactment of a robust whistleblower protection law in Nigeria and other ECOWAS member countries. Please make welcome Godwin Iriacholam, the program manager for African Center. All right. Coming up next, very own Niola Adipoli, Director of Everything. Moderating this session is not other than Joy Ndako, a member of Forensic TV in the PwC. As we begin this session, we encourage everyone online to please use the Slido function. You find it there on WebEx. Please use the Slido function to drop in your comments and your questions, and that will be taken by the moderator. This session is expected to run for about 35 minutes to 40 minutes, after which we will take questions from those online and from those present in the room. So please make use of the Slido function. Thank you very much. Over to you.
All right, thank you, Jide. Good morning, everyone. My name is Joy Ndako, and I'll be moderator for this session. So the panel one is going to be speaking on the state of Nigeria's political. So at the recap, we have our panelists here. I'll be asking them questions, after which we'll open the room to questions, 2 questions from me, and 2 questions from the audience. So my first question is to you, Temidayo. To begin, what should the Nigerians expect from this legislation? And what will be the benefits to whistleblowers, to organizations, as well as general public?
Thank you. I'm going to make the important event in my friend's part. The public came up that about the pleasure to people with his family. Whistleblowing is something that we can say is why it's something we can relate with, but it comes with its own challenges. Beyond the legislation, the legislation it's a measure for correct setting remedies. And what we need to look at the background in the part of culturally, people would see that as switching, but if I can use that word. So our cultural background does not encourage people to speak. Unfortunately, when ethics are being breached or wrongdoing is done, and so when somebody reaches out to try to bring to light this wrongdoing, they could get themselves into trouble or they could be victimized and all of that. So by the time we understanding this background makes us to understand the need for a legislation, and that's I wanted to lay. So when I for one I'm a journalist by training, and of course I've gone on to do other things on vision. I'm not a whistleblower, but I can relate to the fact that you have situations where people are actually either lost their lives or lost their means of livelihood because of this. Now, just speaking to us in the room, you want to think about what kind of measures can be put in place to ensure that this is not our reality. You heard my principal speaker mention that we're talking about this is PwC, but we're talking about investment, advancing our economy and all of that. You also need to think about the fact that people want to be able to come into a country or a jurisdiction and expect that the processes and use of evidence comes without corruption, which is an act of whistleblowing. So what the bill seeks to do is to provide or provide solutions to all of those that are being challenged. For example, increase the channels through which people can make reports orally, in writing, in courts, different channels, expand those channels just so that people are not constrained to just one channel. But a key introduction is the proposal. The bill proposes the establishment of a national office for whistleblowing. And the importance of this is so that you have a dedicated structure for the subject of whistleblowing. And I know that people may have taken the side of parliament and say, oh, they can establish, it will have a lot of establishment. What value does they have? But you have to look at it from the perspective that, like you heard in the keynote address, this is a bill that over 3 consecutive assemblies, 8, 9, and 10 now, you are seeing a trend that every of those assemblies are interested in passing a legislation that provides framework for whistleblowing. That shows you how much importance it holds. There's also the executive part. So for this to work, you think we are talking about the sponsor of the bill now. Think about the need for a national office for this purpose. Now, one thing about the bill that we're pushing forward is that we're not just interested in putting a bill for the sake of it. Implementation is also important. And so things like how will that office be funded is provided for in the bill. So beyond the national office for whistleblowing, which is proposed, there is the National Council, which sets like an oversight arm over the national office. And then this office is supposed to be funded through grants from both private and public sector. It's also supposed to be funded through National Assembly, appropriation, and many other ways. So this shows you intentional thinking that beyond what we always said about whistleblowing, you want to see a sustainable solution. Beyond that, you cannot talk about whistleblowing without talking about anonymity. So this bill, for example, provides strengthens anonymity. But realizing that I don't have all of the time to speak, I want to just quickly talk about the other bill, which is also, and that one was introduced this year. And it's an amendment to a cyber crimes act. While I know that we may not have much of journalists except my respected senior here, you must have heard about the very controversial nature of the Cyber Crimes Act, especially Section 24 that appears to be abused. And that section does not only talk about journalists and the ordinary Nigerian, so to speak. It also talks about whistleblowers. So what we are trying to do in public interest is to ensure that only a competent court of the law can actually define if a person has gone ahead to do cyber stuff. That's on one end. On another end, Section 58 of the Cyber Crimes Act is the interpretation section. That section mentions the various categories of people under the act. However, whistleblowers, who a whistleblower is not defined, and that's very dangerous because you could actually, in your own mind, think that you are carrying out the act of whistleblowing, but somebody sees it as you are revealing government secrets. I'm sure you know that there are legislation that covers that you cannot reveal certain things. So what we seek to do with that bill is to define explicitly what who a whistleblower is in Section 58 of the Cyber Crimes Act. So I thought not to just talk about the bill which brought us to here, which is the whistleblowing bill, but also inform you that we're also going for that to see that whistleblowers are protected. I'd like to advise a great scene.
Thank you very much for that. Okay, so my next question was to Nigeria's whistleblowing policy has been introduced since 2016, with high expectation. But 10 years down the line, public occupant in the policy here. What would you say the response?
You answer the question.
Right, so Nigeria's whistleblowing policy was it's when it's still in high expectation. But what we are saying is that down the line, our public confidence at all these statements once it works.
Because simple engagement, the risk involved is greater than the reward. Yeah. So, and just like what's the in this big side of it, yeah, it's some monitoring things, like policy people. And I think that I'll have to be prepared in that see for providing what looks like a short in the arm. Like that government. No, it's done for giving that voice. Because I remember that sometime in what the end of the state, you basically need a report actually be part of Nigeria. And that report was also co-authored by everywhere he was coming up in every time. That report was submitted in the network divide by we have my back. Yeah, senior senior manager was still finding it. So the credit to you. I think it was that report that really kind of support the Nigerian government, because one of the key findings of the report was that if by 2030, another 4 years, the Iran does stopping about corruption, it's 7% of GDP is putting up. That was what he was called by Iran government to say, but the need to do something. And then the people put together what was then called, what is still called the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption, headed by, in fact, that's all shares, that's all. No, yeah. So that's committee now is it appears like the government says one of the creative ways that address this issue of corruption needs possibility. So I then the Nigerian government thought that consistently now passed that responsibility with administration. So originally the idea of whistleblowing in Nigeria came from Baka, and then it was handed over to the Federal Ministry of Finance in a unit called Presidential Initiative for Continuous Complaint by the administrators of whistleblowing policy. Yeah, 2013, right? When we are just like now, it's the but it's so as we speak, Peter is the administrator of the whistleblowing policy. Peter is the unit in the Federal Ministry of Finance. In Peter, you have in that whistleblowing unit, Peter, you have yes. I wonder why it's in the whistleblowing invites any of that correction to the net, because so yes, ICDC, EFS, in police, they all form Peter. So I mean, they print reports as each report scope. So, but then, so what I want to invite today is that why are we where we are in terms of whistleblowing? You are aware of was the state, the Nigerian state now. What's the real based on political and so each state of the see laws gets the weeks of that. So now it's Ashiro finally the president of Senegal took over in April 2024 and told them that once this work if we didn't want yet. By 2025 August, Senegal is enough. So there are only 3 countries in West Africa now as a whistleblower protection bill. Ghana, Nigeria, and Senegal. This will Nigeria is a signatory to the ECOWAS protocol on the fight against corruption and supplementary protocols on good governance like the one of the key elements of that protocol is that states in West African sub-region, shown legislations to protect people who speak out their neck, not the issue. So why Nigeria has not, done that now is as a result of lack of political will. And why we see that initially when the policy was but people say people were interested during the issue. But when the coordination want to only in leaps and bounds, there are also women continue to do the issue when you see that punishment on desirable actions you have been taken against people. So people that are not interested in doing the issue anymore. In course of the punishment that's going to be, and the state is not ready to protect you. Okay, it's time to learn this one. It's already done this law, and then the activities are the state is completely absent in your life. So what we do as an advocacy is when we go out to tell people that we should bring this important bits and invite them to achievement from transparency and good governance and accountability. And I want not to tell people that there's no guarantee for zero prices. They all our I think we get people not the risk involved. But then as a civil society organization, we'll be there for you because the have partners will be more the international partners will fund us and then we fund people who are retaliated against who have lost jobs, pay stipends, we pay house rent, we pay school fees, people who lost job. Things like that. So when you have a situation like that and then you don't have the law, you do not have the law to protect you. What do you know? We are not letting people showing interest in this way.
Thank you, Godwin.
Education is one of the parents, but why people are not doing it.
Thank you, Godwin.
Thanks.
So, what gaps do you see in this current 2016 policy that the legislation can address?
Because even the legislation that they have, the whistleblowing bill, that I don't know about the whistleblowing bills, the National Assembly. It was the executive bill. As the keynote speaker rightly pointed out, there is an executive bill. This executive bill was put together by the agencies that I mentioned, the EFCC, ICBC, the police, and all the rest of them. They were there. And then that bill was analyzed by the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation. It's the executive bill. Wow. And then as the keynote speaker also rightly pointed out, just last year, what they are doing, what the minister said, was forwarding because at the time assembly, they took part the bill for one reason or the other. That bill couldn't save throughout 9%. And then when the bill wasn't said in a session of the House, it has to return the originators of the bill and then they translate that bill to the National Assembly. The bill, as we wish mediation going as yes now as the presidents as it is now. I'm going through it and I'm seeing that there are 8 global best practice criteria. Of that, of the 30 global best practice, Nigeria's whistleblowing bill only satisfies level 7, just about 5% of what's the whistleblowing bill ought to be. But as a civil society organization, we are not interested, we are not worried. We just want, can you just pass this bill and then we can begin to work on it, as time goes on. So that is where we are today. So the whistleblowing bill is also full of gaps. Don't even mention the whistleblowing policy. The whistleblowing policy is a 16-page document. And then section 12 of that provision of that, and section 12 of that policy itself spells out protection for people who face adverse action for making disclosures. But as I speak to you now, I've worked with about 13 whistleblowers. All of them in the public sector. All of them. One was a mobile loss, all of them was the public sector. None enjoying protection under that policy. So that's whistleblowing policy. It's just a paper like that. It's just that like that. It doesn't protect. Nobody gets to them. So nobody, no whistleblower that have got that have been retaliated against enjoy protection at that stage.
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you, God.
Thank you. So I want to hear,
Right.
where's the private sector since I've never looked at it done that in terms of the grant of public equity, the CSCPM guidelines. So what is a dedicated institution legislation? Why does it matter now? And what are the benefits to the public?
All right. Thank you so much, Joy. I want to thank my panelists and the keynote speaker for. I think that when you look at Nigeria as a whole, we can divide it into three parts. We have the general populace, we have people in the public sector, and then we have people in the private sector. As far as the private sector space is concerned, there are regulations guiding or providing guidelines with respect to what whistleblowing is, who whistleblowers are, and the kind of frameworks that companies and private entities should put in place to ensure that whistleblowers are protected. Okay? But when you look at that area as a standalone set, it is influenced by what the guy mentioned earlier. The culture of the people not the one to report, and what Bergen I just mentioned, the seeming lack of a legislator, a legislation, rather, as a government backing to protect whistleblowers. So in other words, if you want to make a report within your private sector, or even if in the public sector, I believe they have something called cyber, right? That they also use as the means of blowing the whistle. The lack of a legislation that protects people generally. So if you lose your job today, for example, and you go to court, right? And that's the benefit that this legislation brings in the court. It provides what I would like to call a very good foundation upon which all the advances that we made in the public sector space, all the advances that we made in the private sector space, all the advances we made within the financial service industry, SEC, you also have their guidelines, and what the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria has done with respect to the Nigerian Code of Corporate Governance. It provides foundation for that, and it supports the work. It also helps companies, right, and everybody's of those companies. So further, strengthening their framework, right? So now we know that when the legislation comes, whistleblowers will now know that they have an instrument of the law with which they can protect themselves, with which they can guard against or expect somebody to support them against reprisal attacks, against any form of damage either to their person and also maybe to their means of livelihood. So that's what I believe the legislation will do for the year.
Thanks so much, Diola. So over to you, Bodley. You already made this in public sector, such as Silicon, like Diola mentioned, and also, for instance, the federal civil service. How effective are these mechanisms scale in providing legal protection for public servants that are litigation?
Not effective at all. Nobody enjoys any protection. Well, but the capacity, nobody, I mean, and that is very serious. I mean, what person paid for who gets sick doesn't it? It's not that a consumer protection authority like Bets or a cyber that comes and then crowd on heads. No, it's just a safe alternative to silence. Encourage people, breaks the culture of silence. Encourage these people to stick out their head to make disclosures in the public interest. It has to be in the public interest. So we can become and all the rest of it, make reports to budgets. We are talking of whistleblowing is the next initiative, the next concept, the global initiative to ensure transparency and accountability and assurance.
Thank you, God.
So yes, the parties have become what is so that it's meant they need a law. They stand a law protection law. Which and that's the platform to go to court because whistleblowing is a legal thing. It's a legal process. So you can't if somebody wants to start on what ground do you go to court? But we can have a legislation like a whistleblower protection law and then somebody retaliates against you, or you are dismissed, you are suspended, you are, relatively transferred or something, you can end up on the legal action as a result of your discipline activity. Then you can go to court. Somebody inside the court, and who knows all of those things? They don't work there. They are irrelevant.
Thank you. Okay, so we heard a lot about how the law protection for whistleblowers. Semitayo, what are the protective mechanisms that we currently have in the field that can protect whistleblowers, especially people in the private sector?
Just before some percent, I would like to address some of that. It's like what I said. Yes, I wouldn't be the club against that. Of course, it's it's a civil society. I was a civil society because the question about the public says. However, I want to, it might not be something that we are well, but for example, in Parliament, the Parliament exercises quasi judicial function through the House Committee on Public Petition. So every plenary day, every sitting of the House of Representatives as well as the Senate, the first business of the day after the announcements are read is for lawmakers who represent constituents to stand up and present the petition that they have. And many times you couldn't have a single lawmaker have as much as 3 petitions. And what are these petitions? I was unjustly sacked from work. I was denied promotion. Why it's not inherently stated that was as a result of whistleblowing. I see like an avenue for a whistleblower, for example, to be able to push their case forward. So I said this to say that Mr. Godwin is not an happiness and hopeless situation because Parliament has that as its constitutional function. I know it's easy to say, but how much resources have been generated? The truth is that resources are generated for those systems, but it's not like a court hearing. It takes a period of time, dependent on the evidence you are able to push forward. And then there's also the fact that just imagine 360 lawmakers. You have for every sitting, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they submitted. So you can imagine the volume of petitions that will be treated. So it was important to establish that. Going back to the bill, also to allay his fear. I know it was talking to Parliament, but about the executive which he has said. So allay his fears about what the bill brings on the table, so to speak. It's the fact that there is also the provision for incentives for people, so like, which is why I was really happy with what I was saying when you talked about the importance of a comprehensive legal framework. It's not just telling people to go and put their lives, so to speak, on at least what incentives exist. And there's also the reverse side of it, because we will not be fair to our bed if we talk about people who genuinely want to rebuild something. But what about those who intended to use them again for a negative purpose or abuse? This bill, which is sponsored by my principal, also makes provision for that. So it's the reason why we cannot make the bill available, because like you said, it adds not much of value because it's an ongoing process. So my charge, so to speak, for us is that yes, let us keep faith with what the spokesman has said. We have on the level of the next of the legislative agenda will be out. I think that's what we're talking about. This is it. When he was saying it's something that everyone should have. The House already sees this. We're speaking for the House specifically now. The House already sees whistleblowing as something that is of vital importance. So as soon as that executive bill comes, the House rules provides for harmonization, where so like don't waste Parliament's time. A lot of the things that needs to be attended to in Nigeria, and then you push it just to the point you drop it. You wait for that. When it comes, you do a consolidation. You are harmonizing provisions so that it's not only robust. You are looking at how possible it's how easy it is for you to abstain from. My principal has sponsored 4 bills that have been passed by both chambers. That's a rare feat for a first-time lawmaker. Now, this is not about it. I'm saying because of the amount of strategic thinking that goes into saying through from the beginning to the end. And that's why we want to keep it that we are also deploying that strategic thinking to this work. And we are positive that this bill will not die in anything. So that's the
And thanks for everything.
I think yeah, address something. It kind of not even for that inside. But this thing that I just heard you mention that I mean maybe in passing that if this is going to that you have also have people show that I mean like people don't use like what the music negatively gets punished like, or something like that. Now if you said something like that, yeah. So what I actually wanted to read. No, the point is that it's penalties for false or malicious disclosures that I'm talking about. Okay. I want you just if that means they're over 15 benefit, but I was forgot to mention that in case because of political humiliation, it can't go to the government and say, oh, what if somebody uses this? There is a provision that provides for that makes that
We can take this offline.
It's that because I just want to mention that Whistleblowing law does not admit for anything like good state. You don't begin to look for good thing. So long as the information provided is genuinely objective, it begins to be evidence of what is conducted. Yes. Yes. So you don't have to because otherwise you need to have to put it. And the whistleblower would be on trial.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So, I mean, in addition to the whistleblower bill, I mean, it's been a rich conversation. In addition to the whistleblower bill, what other suggestions would you believe would improve the whistleblower framework in Nigeria?
Thank you so much, Joy. Without laboring what similar are not doing, what about our section, I think one of the other things that we need to start asking questions about, for me, is whether we can now state legislators, right, to also consider domesticating whistleblowing protection bills. Because if you look at Nigeria currently, we have 36 federated states, right? And it seems as if we're all waiting for the federal government to pass a particular law. But when you look at other things, say for example, taxes, it is easy for us to say in state A and state B, there are different tax regimes, right? There are things that can be taxed in state A, and there are things that can be taxed in B. Same thing with in criminal laws, right? There are things that can be criminalized somewhere, and when you get to another state, it can't be criminalized. So I think some of the things that we need to start adding to this conversation is now looking beyond the national accent, and then let's look at our state assemblies as well and say, what can the state house of assembly, right? What can they also domesticate or provide whistleblower protection for people who work within that jurisdiction, who pay taxes within that jurisdiction, and who provide services within that jurisdiction? That would be as well would have created, more, how would I call it, more safety nets. In other words, if you miss the federal net, okay, let's start from private sector. If you miss the net for your industry, and then you miss the net for your company, then you miss the federal net. At least there will be the state net. So you have a whistleblower net has what I would like to call 4 levels of protection. And so those are the things that I think we need to take.
Thank you very much. I know bills like this usually need to go through public hearing. So how would people be involved? How are they able to hear the opinions on this bill before it's passed by law?
It wasn't just something separately, which is the people enlightenment of that, which is a state where it's based on the general principle, which I've just some of which I've shared here, will be taken in the house. As soon as we cross the state of second reading, where the debate is done, it's forwarded to the relevant committees. And at that point, what the committee does is to call for a public hearing. Now, I cannot say for other assemblies, but in this particular assembly, the office of the House Controller, which where I work, we make it a point of duty to always publicized. We should a press statement ahead of time for people to be able to participate in public hearing. So it definitely, especially for something as important as this, or upfront, a public hearing will be announced. And when the date is announced for such by the committee through the House Spokesman's office, it gives Nigerians opportunity to any Nigerian just come into the National Assembly and of course following necessary procedures, and then you make yourself president at the public hearing. And the vice president there says, I don't want this part of the debate to be there. I want this part of the debate to be there. And then the legislators take it back, possibly their report, and then it is taken back to Parliament before you go for third reading. So there's no issue about you have to need to make a valuable change. The legislators are not all knowing.
Thank you very much, Bill. Okay, so on the final note, over to Adela. If the bill is enacted tomorrow, there's a conversation that executives and board members should be having. What conversation should they be having that they are not currently having?
Okay, thanks a lot, Joy. I don't see that they are not currently having, because the bill is not, the act is not yet there. But if the act comes out today, I think what every compliance person in the private sector needs to do is to then look at the existing whistleblowing policy, whistleblowing framework, and compare it with that piece of legislation to ensure that in taking in all the provisions of the legislation and ensure also that they mark their policies and mark their reporting frameworks to what the act would finally say. In addition to that, it would also require them to have engagement and conversations with their employees. Because once there is a whistleblowing protection bill that says nobody blows a whistle in a jurisdiction called Nigeria, there is a certain expectation of protection that they must get. That means that boards and executives then need to start thinking about how to implement those protections and those safety nets within their own space, and ensure that whistleblowers are protected. Just to say on the general note is that for most of the clients that we've been interfaced with, for us, we've seen people in the private sector who are very concerned about making sure that their employees are well protected, right? So they put in every form of systems that ensure anonymity of whistleblowers. They put in every form of systems that ensure protection for whistleblowers. So what this kind of legislation will do is further strengthen what those guys have and help them to stay in the conversation with that.
Thank you very much, Dela. It's been a very rich and insightful conversation. So,
And to answer that, we need to test it. Yes, now.
So, what specific consideration do you want government to look at for this new legislation? How is it?
Yeah, I don't have a conversation about it. Yeah, look, the National Assembly is made up of 80 members. You better get to stay PC. 8 months, in 24 hours, he came to the National Assembly. If he wants to put a black protection law, no, then get it, mobilize your members and say, guys, I want this law now. They can have it. I'm embarrassed that Nigeria does not have a single protection law. That's what I'm saying. The president is concentrated on macroeconomic stability and growth. He doesn't know that when we are producing learning, we can also not move spending efficiency on the inner or the macroeconomic stability and financing efficiency and the government. So, what is so difficult in coming up with? I talk about you, and what about people not also looking at what the national state houses assembly with the governors in the state. This thing flows from the top. It depends on the party, what language and the national leadership. The president can say, okay, this I found the whistleblower protection law. I also want the whistleblower protection law in each state. In 2024, yes, I thought that sent a memo separating the memo across all MPs. The money workers wants to help from their practices. Otherwise, they become straightforward. It's a chilling effect. That could be helps and this very points. Our rubbish is section 27 of FOI Act. So what is that? For the country that wants transparency, that wants to comply with the, good practices, global best practice. Right.
Thank you, anybody clear about that?
Great. So thank you. Thank you. It's not so much a question, it's just it's about how we can also look at this. God in just because I see a very market, I say public in the survey. I think it's going more from the cultural perspective without all the discussion. The problem with most of the strategy in Nigeria is we see the concept abroad, that's the changes. We don't have same culture, we don't have same mantra. So this is always going to become the mask. In primary school, somebody's fast. What's that? Right? Everybody wants it. That's what's going. It's in our culture. It's what we do. They will say, what's up with the minute square? Somebody will tell you, I saw someone, somebody will hold up and provide the information because if everybody knows that the consequence of not providing the information, every other person will be punished. So I think if we can take this going message to the grassroots, to the common man. So because it's where cultural values are enshrined, take this church, taking to live there. These guys have no interest. Okay, people. Trust me, if I were National Assembly, I would not fast it. I mean, I'll be stupid to consider something not. Why would I consider something when I know it's not by English folks? Right? So, okay, thank you. So, when you get the message, right? Yeah, I mean, that's the point. I mean, you could say that a policy that was passed in 2010 still doesn't absorb the convent value. It has been 20 years, you don't worry about maybe it's something from me.
Okay, so on to the next question.
Thank you. I mean, sorry, I've listened to the conversations after I noticed that nothing was mentioned about compensation or whistleblower. In advanced corruptions, there are ways provided some processing is to compensate whistleblower, at least to motivate them. Now, we all know in our country, Nigeria, see, I said, when the culture, see something out there, we are copying it, we need to copy it and it shows it's with the control power system. Now, I work in the power sector. I use some of our customers to tell us where the whistleblower was that we saw a bypass. And I was going on over it yet, but this is making it revenue. If I want to give you that information, it's going to cover the revenue. So, what is my interview?
So, I think you did that.
Yes, I'll just open the journal that has millions. If you add more information, it's not possible to make everything in one. So, but the party talking about condition and one is a this mail introducing financial incentives when disclosures leading to recovery of public assets and also allows compensation for whistleblowers who suffer the intervention. It further proposes a percentage-based reward structure tied to coverage. Then there is also employment protection and relocation rights. Employees who suffer requests that may challenge disciplinary action, seek review of advert and apply for relocation where continued employment space. With my point, sir, is to say that I want to assure you that it's a comprehensive framework, whatever I call it. It's not just the yes, all of those things you mentioned that they are covered. I'm pleased to read you in shower. So disagree with this action. Don't say that it is stopping for the legislator to so I get that sure we are communication people. So we understand that the National Assembly, particularly, yes, the National Assembly suffer years of reputation deficit. And that's what we are paid for correct. Not just in code, but to ensure that these works are planned for. I'm sitting here today because the lawmaker, despite the fact that the lawmaking decided that this conversation should not be had out in voice of parliament. That I'm sure is why it was in action. Now, I mean, I'm sorry, it's just important to address this thing. So there's also the part that I think that I understand the point you're trying to make, but you need to look at that as it relates to the whistleblowing with the executive slowed this down, not the legislature, because across 3 assemblies, different variations of bill legislation to protect the whistleblower scaled through, which is at the point where it gets to the executive that you find an issue, which is why, like I said, strategic thinking now says, other than just push the bill so that you can shout to the rules of that might be that being passed, why don't you look towards a more better engagement, which I'm also glad that I'm taking it this back to Abuja to say that Mr. Godwin is supposed to be a partner that I'm going to work with because he has seen the other side of this thing. So I'm not saying that there's a lot of incentive. Not every legislator is interested in Nigeria being a place of negative names. We work for the passage of the sexual harassment in tertiary education. My principal knows that it's a big get today. He's an APC member, but he's sponsored the people independent candidate. So there is a lot of things that shows that the legislator is not stupid. Well, from here to the question, I think that's about it. So this,
Another question for you, actually.
Another question. So, from what you said, it looks like the executive is pushing back on going ahead with this field. What other ways can we? Because I understand that it's also possible for you to bypass the executive to go ahead to pass this bill. So what are you going in that direction? I'm not sure it's a pushback. I think that it's a difference in perspective, 6 or 9. They have their own idea of what should be there. The legislature has its own idea of what should be there. So if you don't come to the common ground, and what is like what is looking for is, I don't think that it even solves the issue. It's a worse approach, which is almost like if that the president sends a bill and then nobody sees any reason to counter what's there. I don't think that that's the best approach to be. The National Assembly has 12 political parties. A level of them are opposition parties as restrictively. So when you said that the majority of them are APC members, that something sells do not mean that it was not very easy. There's a lot that goes underneath the legislative process, convincing people and not people. And then the idea of now that not showing this going, but I work from the front to the back. So I think on that, I don't want us to be without taking what it said seriously. When you check most of the issues that have been harassed, locked up, whistleblowers, the state governments are the heart of many of these issues. So it is also a right thing that you could have state governments lead the way while we wait for a federal. We think federal system on Broadway. And I can give you an example. A state was the first state in Nigeria to pass the ECOI Act. And I don't know, it's not like me, but thankfully all of my principal was there. But the point is that you can have states also do this without voting for the federal policy federation. So that point you made, that is very, very instructive. While Mr. Godwin and I do it, I was in at the federal in the middle. The state governments have started. Yes, it also, it's just important that the city House of Assembly, House of Representatives. But I'm saying that what's happening to Lagos, what's happening to Akwa Ibom, what's happening to every other state. So we need to hold them to account. The way you're holding us to account, hold them to account so that they get this done. And the headers, PwC can also work our government to get that done. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Very much in video rich conversation. So I'll allow Madiola to just wrap up.
Okay, I think the conversations have been very interesting as expected. If there's something that you need to take out of this space, I think there are about 3 points. Number one is that we have a bill about whistleblower protection, right? And it is seen to us from the communication we've had today that there is collaboration between the executive and the legislature on this particular bill, right? And speaker said we have about 11 months or 12 months window. And so what I would just encourage is Mr. Godwin, even that they go back to Abuja, all of us, we also try to pay attention to that bit and see what we can do together across the line. The second point is that everybody is passionate about super protection. And we have to protect our spaces, our individual spaces. So in addition to looking at the laws at the federal level, we also need to go back and look at our policies in our workplace, maybe even policies in our homes. Yes, maybe policies in our homes. Encourage whistleblowing at home. Take it to the cultural level, and that I think is what my learned brother David was talking about. And then finally, when you listen to all this conversation, a point also was, right, that we must be our brothers. I think more to ensure that people don't give their jobs for speaking up, and that we must all build our traditional whistleblowing system. You asked last year, and the answer is yes. But you didn't do that. That's what we get. The other is needed. No, it was not until they are ADP. So, and we must all work. You got right. I can give you access. So, and then the final thing is that we must provide for a space or a culture of integrity, a culture of openness, and ensure that conversations like this are happening. So it's not just only for this book, but let's take the conversation out there. Thank you very much. Thank you.
It's not one being weak. Can you, and I, so exactly what we are in this school, who has a better strategy for dealing with corrupt practices, legalities, on the side of whistleblowing. Does anybody have, and anybody think of any other concept further than whistleblowing? Something different. Because about the best strategy for dealing with this, because what has ideas of another IT or in 2017, PwC did stopped. It's internal auditors. I mean, I'm talking about internal auditors in this. We are able to uncover the fraud in that organization. Margin about 70%. But whistleblowers that reported misconduct, we were able to cover about 49%. That tells you the importance of restriction. Yes, internal auditors, the big organizations like yours, going to be uncovered fraud like maybe 17%. For whistleblowers, total was about 49%. That tells you the importance of it. Wait, sir, it does. Okay. And this is no. John,
Let's make it.
Let's start this.
All right, thank you all very much. Thank you so much to the part. Thank you to everyone. So, at this point, we'll be taking a very short break. For those of us present in the room, please feel free to step into the break room where we have some refreshments waiting for you. For those of us online, you're not left out. We have something very special for you. So please stay tuned. I'll be inviting my colleague now to run us through a series of interesting games. And please note that there are prizes to be won. So please let's participate. Very interesting prizes, actually. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Julia. What a fantastic conversation we just had. So for our online audience, we're going to be doing some icebreakers, and we have very exciting game to be won. All right, so my friends of the media are going to put up this Slido link now, and I'm going to need you to bring out your phone, scan the QR code, I got paid would come to the title provision.
It means so much of personal.
All right, fantastic. It's not but the screen. Pick up your phone. At the time the QR code, just take it to the title link. Also put the link in the chat box and show you.
If you stop me, that is actually, I mean, you must be much probably a top tip. Say, don't.
All right, I'll be dropping the link. Fantastic. All right, so bring out your board to start the board. The names to ask for your name. First, you ask for your password. What the password like show it on your screen. H9 W Simpson J. I want you to put in the password to ask for your name. Please put your full name so we can track you. Like I said, we have very exciting gift the name to ensure that we can find your video. All right, so now we have the link in the chat box. Please click the link.
What the? I put friend
Click the link or scan the QR code. If you got any, you can give us a thumbs up. Then and everything shows that you're Slido, you're on the link, you're ready to win. So make Thank you. Thank you. You're part of me. Get real. Wow, we have so much here. Fantastic. All right, so we're about to start the game. Let's move on to Slido.
What's that?
We're gonna have 10 group of questions.
Should I?
I need to 10 questions with multiple choice. They're going to pick the answers that you think is correct answer. And we're going to have a leaderboard. I'm going to give inviting you for the first 5 people to ensure that you are one of the first 5. But trust me, if you listen to the panel session, I'm pretty sure you're going to have it. All right, so I'm just excited now.
God, it's what implies. All
right, we're going to slide now. We're going to start with the very first question. I hope you're ready. All right, thank you, Akbaridi. Thank you, Arinola. Thank you, Olaoluwa. Fantastic. We're ready. Thank you, hospitality. Thank you. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, sure. I think that's a little bit too loud. I was but I feel about myself.
Right. What about now when we can slide on exactly of the questions?
Quick now, yes. Well, it's I'll see it on the else. Let's see it and say that we don't need to have you the area. There there's a show the performance what they're not going to do it. So see like
all right, so can we see now? Are we all there? We're about to start the question. We want to make sure everybody is on track. But once you start, you have 60 seconds for each question. Once 60 seconds runs out, you move on to the next question. So I want to make sure everyone is on there when we start.
Yes.
All right, so you should say that the question is about to start, the food is about to start, and we start saying, right?
Your WhatsApp is so was it's that everything was like authorized to oh, six late and the image it pops up going, then it can be okay, credits. Talk about the I was thinking absolutely. So I so what I consider it that it's okay. I'm always of sleep well. Do it yes, yeah, I'm sexual. Okay. It's really but just I think that I think in our session now the world is set it's not shitting, necessarily on something I'm becoming pressure and that's not nice. But then your country, it's like everybody's narrow. So I've always been pretty narrow.
All right, so we have the first question now. Please confirm that you can see The first question, you have 45 seconds to answer, not even 60 seconds. So which statement best reflects the current whistleblowing position in Nigeria? Have we started?
Yeah, the papa, I don't. Okay.
All right, please confirm that you've answered. Give me a thumbs up if you've answered so we move on to the next question. Okay, so they haven't started yet.
It's like so what's sorry? Not for me. Like, almost.
All right, that's it. Locked in 39 seconds. To ensure you quickly pick your option, you have 35 seconds. Which statement best reflects the current whistleblowing position in Nigeria? We have 4 options.
Yeah. Let's
Okay. A lot of people picking A, but it's fastest finger. How fast can you get it?
films and then
You have 10 seconds more. If you haven't picked an answer, now is the time. We have 56 votes. Okay, keep it coming. Fantastic. Now that question is closed. We're moving on to the next question. Let's review the answer. The question is Nigeria has the whistleblowing policy framework, while broader legislative development remains a continuing area of development. I hope you got it. Should we see the leaderboard for the first round? Let's see who our top guys are. I don't think the leaderboard has things in it.
you know, okay,
All right, let's move to the next question. All right. The second question is on, you have 45 seconds. Which of the following most closely reflects the purpose of a whistleblowing mechanism in an organization?
okay, there's some kind of spread from
30 seconds on the clock. We have 13 votes. We're waiting for 30 more people. Pick an option.
well, now we need to sit anytime.
All right, we're almost there. You haven't picked. This is the time to pick one. Locked in 10. Fastest fingers only. Which of the following closely reflects the purpose of whistleblowing mechanism in an organization? The question is locked. Now we move on to the next question. Well, let's see the answer first. All right, to provide a channel for reporting misconduct. Did you get it? You got to give me a thumbs up. If you didn't get it, a thumbs down. Better luck next time. All right. Thank you, Arnold and Jubilee. Wow, we have winners of the house. Fantastic. Next question. On 45 seconds on the clock. Which statement best reflects why legislative progress remains important in whistleblowing discussion in Nigeria? If you listen to the first panel, you will get this easily. Blocks in 30 seconds. A lot of people picking options D. Are you sure? Are you very sure? All right, 15 seconds on the clock. If you haven't picked one, this is the time. Okay, locked in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fantastic. I hope you put in your answer. Let's see the answer to that question. Beyond encouraging reporting, it will establish clearer protection, responsibilities, and enforcement mechanisms. 91% of people got the answer. Fantastic. Fantastic. All right. Good job. You're doing so well. Move on to the next question. 45 seconds on the clock. Let's go. Which of the following is the most accurate indicator that a whistleblowing program is effective? All right, keep the votes coming in. Don't give up. If you've not been getting it, don't worry. We still have 7 questions more. All right, 20 seconds on the clock. Some people are picking up some B, and I love the variety. You have 10 seconds more. You haven't picked. This is time to pick. All right, I hope you picked an answer because it's closed. Now let's review the answer. The extent to which the pathway is accessible, trusted, administered, and linked to remediation and anti-retaliation safeguard. Fantastic. Arinola is giving me the thumbs up. You should one of our winners. If you also think you're a winner, let me see you give it a thank you, Esther. Thank you, Gabriel. Thank you. Thank you, Stella. Yeah, so let's look at the interim leaderboard. Let's see who's topping the game. Fantastic. We have Priscilla.
It's about just
Is that like that's a board? Yeah, that's good. All right, we have Priscilla, we have Sunshine, Onipade, we have Michael, we have Maxi, and we have Understand. Fantastic. Keep it coming and you may win this quiz. All right, let's go back to the question. Hold on, I see you copy, but I don't know you're on the beta board. Come on. All right, so next question. Okay. 40 seconds on the clock. An organization using a third-party hotline, but all reports are automatically copied to operational management. What is the strongest concern? All right, a lot of people picking question. Option A. Might be a few people picking option B. Someone picking option C. Fantastic.
inside. Very honest.
Okay, 15 seconds on the clock. If you haven't picked, now is the time.
Well,
Locks in 10. What is the strongest concern? All right, done. Let's see the answer to that question. The arrangements may weaken confidence in confidentiality and independence despite the outsourced model. Fantastic. 92% of people got the question. Gemini, fantastic. Well done to you. All right, let's move on to the next question. In the context of legislative progress in Nigeria, which organizational response is most prudent
which is not why.
as the bill came?
So, my trust. So, my people just that so lost but there are errors.
All right. Are you sure you're reading the option? Because it takes time to read through. It locks in 20 seconds. Fastest fingers.
I get like, yeah, hurts me. You can
Locked in 15.
eat that. I said, oh, it's going
In 10.
mostly.
All right. Gabriel, your confidence will go to the question. I love that.
No, they'll
In 2, 1, and it's over. All right. So let's see the answer to that question.
but
Option D, building reporting systems that are credible and scalable so they can align with evolving expectations on protection, documentation, and governance. Arinola got it again. Fantastic. 93%. If you got it, let me see a thumbs up. If you failed it, let me see a thumbs down. All right. Well done, Gibbs. Well done, Gabriel. All right. Well done, James. Well done, Ian. Well done. Sunshine. Wow. Fantastic. All right. Let's go to the next question. I don't know what question 3 have.
yeah.
All right, next question on the clock. This is question 7. We have 3 more. Which consideration is most likely to influence whether employees actually use a whistleblowing channel in a sensitive case? What will make an employee use a whistleblowing channel in a sensitive case? All right, 20 seconds on the clock. Fantastic. I see a lot of answers pouring in. Okay, we're jumping between option A and option C. All right, Gabriel. Thank you for the thumbs up. Locked in 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Let's see the answer to that question. All right, option A. The reporting route appears sufficiently independent and capable of handling the matter without inappropriate exposure. I know I see that you've gotten it again. Fantastic. Well done, Elijah. Well done. Well done. All right, so we have 2 more questions. If you've not been winning, this is your time. 3 more questions, rather. If you've not been winning, this is your time. All right, let's go. Next question. Okay, let's look at the leaderboard in the meantime. Okay, now we have Max D leading the game. Well done, well done, well done, Max D. We have Priscilla up next. We have Sunshine, we have Michael, and now we have a new person. Rafi, well done, Rafi. Well done, well done, well done. Okay, let's move to the next question.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Question number 8. Which organizational feature most strongly improves the credibility of whistleblowing arrangements when the allegation may involve senior management?
Sounds very well.
Very, very well. This one could be a bit tricky. Very a bit tricky, okay?
Ignoring what about check.
All right, locked in 20 seconds.
It's gone.
That's what it's about. Senior management. All right, I think everyone's speaking almost all the options. So there's a lot of variety here. Some people are picking and they are unpicking. All right, locked in there a second. Let's see the answer to that question. All right, option number D. Reporting pathways not only opted externally, but ensuring restricted need-to-know access. Only half of us got that question. Wow. I want to see thumbs up if you got that question. Well done, Gabriel. Well done, Elijah. Well done, Arnola. Well done, Gift. Well done, Tolu. Jay and Sunshine. Elijah. Fantastic. Well done. Let's move on to the next question. The second to the last. All right, locked in 45 seconds. Which statement best explains why the future of whistleblowing discussion in Nigeria is not only about passing legislation? And if you listen to the first panel, you'll get that one easily. All right, I see a lot of answers pouring in. Locked in 20 seconds. Okay, option B, option C, option A, maybe, option D, fantastic. Let's see. Locked in 10 seconds. 2, 1, yeah, and that closes out. We have one more question. Let's see the answer to that. Option B, future effectiveness will depend not only on legal development, but also on policy design, trust, awareness, and confidence. Well done, Mama, today. Well done, Elijah, James, Abiodu. Fantastic. You're doing great. I mean, oh, Gabriel didn't get this one. No, it's okay. Try again next time. Thank you, Esther. Well done. We have the last and final question. So you're not getting this is your time. Let's go. Under Nigeria's whistleblowing policy framework, the possibility of a reward is generally linked to. It's a very easy one. Very easy to get. Locked in 30 seconds. All right, this is your last try. This is your last lap. Locked in 20 seconds. Your last chance to win some of our exciting prizes for the best and top 5. Locked in about 5 seconds. 2, 1. Fantastic. Thank you. Let's see the answer to that question. Information that leads to the recovery of misappropriated or consumer. I see a lot of thumbs up. Well done, Stella, Babatunde, Demilade, Christopher, Stella, Jane, Babalola. Well done, Esther. Well done, Joseph. Well done. Fantastic. We've come to the end. So now let's review the final leaderboard. Your name there? Are you there? All right. Starting from number 5, we have Jubilee Afia. A round of applause, Jubilee. Let's give him a round of applause. Next, we have Mercy. Mercy, well done. We have Michael Aremu, consistently on the board. Well done. We have Sunshine Onipade. Well done. And at the top, we had Rapin Goa. Let's give it up for Rapin Goa. Well done. Fantastic. Fantastic. So we have our top 5 winners. The record, we are going to reach out to you for your exciting prizes. And you can trust that you'll be special. Thank you so much for participating. Honorable mention to Oluwatobi, to Oluwatomisi. Let's go through. Adekemi, well done. Oyinda, well done. Moturaya, well done. Shola, Presidia, Maxi, you were at the top before, but beyond that. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining. We've had a fantastic session. Next, we're going to have the panel 2. So don't log off. Don't log off. Still stay. It's going to be an exciting panel session. We're going to be discussing internal versus external whistleblowing. Which should you be considering in your organization? So you definitely want to stay for this. All right. Thank you. Stop.
Yeah, just it's not check. It's not an extra dot. Let's see, like I make them fun. I'll see good one.
We always do that.
I don't need her questions. We're both there. I go into it to know the data. What's the shit? What's up? Just what I just repeat Jawets and social look with those. That's what I'm saying. English. I could promise that I'm 40 sure. In the hitting jump and in the road where the beach okay with installed I got the back of the it should be absolutely little bit like starting. That's not what was that's not but it was very much like you should know all that from not the other the but not just like the what your it had the incredible I can just take out you're not happening like I recommend 9 of which 5 people but it's German more like not but it's not the well that never the nothing what they are but I don't see it trying people to give us a bit like I'm like, yeah, it's surrounded you. Even I should want to it's not pretty much. It's not. So I need to spend with them. No, I now it's. But I'm not selling part of you. Looks like see. It's getting back with the. So that's what. Well, so it will keep our recognize. Well, so that principle lucky. It's not so it's not great. It's like going what's the one choice on the dust up. It's not more important stores. Smart you. But it's not fast to make so well if actually here that's what is it for lots of tasks. I think about what that is. You're not learning because I made it like something. You know, so that like but there's a thing when I'm sadly drop it. You know, with people not I have an upside today. It's like actually all agree. So like I'm new to now. It's not speaking of what you pause, it's all right. It was one of the stars that are on. It's better. What do you want to do? It's really easily. Just a tiny figure of the activate it's a question either. So we're standing out on picking it up. I got to do it like then almost something like I don't get it. No. Yes, here. What kind of budget song from the
We're starting off the second session soon. Right, sure you don't drop off. Be an exciting one. The next 5 minutes will be enough for the second session. So if you need to stretch your legs, stretch your arms, move around, send this link to someone, put it on the WhatsApp, put it on your LinkedIn. This is the time you want to do that. Keep up in the next 5 minutes.
Welcome to this that client right back right and it's up. It's right down we're to see people that were like this is something but he's excellent. It's not so set up right at this one. That okay as I mean he can step not to get out of the more foot another take one it was that one stood that it's it's not easy, but he said, yes, my food is single piece in big life, without
Don't you think you smile almost you don't feel that no be nothing about the recruit my figure actually. You want cyber. I got where your brother's now was like where is so this yeah no we get you and what about it you get was never stops that's that's most we saw well you probably know so I used to if it's not really technical, if you're invincible to do more, then you're a but I was saying, so that's how the reason that the orbit swing, you know, that all the joint by everything. I does not think so like that's it on beyond something like we had better possibly in these spirits and what I think with their good bumps to get I watched the I did back into the then the other one did reactions already I was like we can actually have the message. Oh, it's been bad. It more recent about shot about it's wire, which is cool. The cast not ever being that information, but it's very open first. It's like they're not looking to set of it. I don't know if it's out of it. I mean, that's you. As a good step, the experience set up because I've been setting it. That's the region stuff. Well, that's about that's everything. If there's any questions, we'll come here. So I should have but see now, I mean, it's going to be hard if with all your ups. So I will be sort, you know, sassy. That makes me out with it was just on like some with that. It's the best show on that. It's a closer. It's not really him. It's good or rush. Get our belts. Out. You can shouting for this year. So I said, I'll stop earlier. Actually, that's what they showed me. That's what is being what I was to pick up. Where's it? The organized down. So I'm I'm small now. You know, Monday. Sound and whether the way the rice kind now it's only honest. We have got to see a quick. Take it. I'm the break. It's very great. Side about it. Yeah, it does. It's on the side. Let's hold on. That's all. I'm going to so right way to this are helping the seek out the fact that you can look at the
All right.
I think we have realized you said it. It's you have the head up the outcome. This is not strong revenge and
Okay. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Welcome back. To those of us all, I'm sure we had a great time, right? Engaging in the games. For those top 5 winners, wonderful prizes to be picked up. I'm sure I already told you. Please feel free to come around, pick up your winnings, pick up your prizes. We're about into the second half of Whistleblowing webinar. We have our panelists seated. We also have our guests in the room. And we're about to commence. All right. So we'll move on to but before we do that, we'll be taking the second keynote address from our speaker in person of Adeola Adekunle Zala in the forensic service practice at PwC Nigeria, bringing over 13 years of hands-on experience in delivering impactful forensic and risk consulting services. He holds a bachelor's degree in microbiology from Oxford University and is a certified member of several respected professional bodies, including the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, the Institute of Internal Auditor, the Institute of Certified Forensic Accountants. He is also a celebrated certified user forensic specialist and an alumnus of the prestigious International Anti Academy. Adeola's professional journey spans a wide range of forensic specialties. His core areas of expertise include forensic investigations and audits, whistleblowing framework, compliance and risk reviews, business process and control assessments, internal audits, and data-driven analytics. He has led and managed high-stakes events across public and private sectors, navigating complex fraud and compliance challenges with depth and precision. Adeola has extensive experience setting up whistleblowing programs and overseeing investigative engagement has positioned him at the front line of organizational transparency and accountability insights that will enrich today's dialogue. Please make welcome Adeola Adekunle, Associate Director of Forensic Medicine, PwC Nigeria.
Thank you, Judith. Thank you, everyone. I'm delighted to be here. I like talking about whistleblowing. Everything is very simple. It's the simplest part of my work, right? So if I show up in office, you probably think I'm here to investigate. But then I talk about whistleblowing because everybody likes the topic. So today we're looking at the overview of internal and external whistleblowing framework, because you can have the finest legislation, you can have the finest policies, you could have documented some of the nicest guidelines. One thing that determines whether a whistleblowing framework work or whether a whistleblowing policy will work is how the channels are being hosted. By channels, we mean means through which whistleblower. By channels, we mean means through which a whistleblower can report. We're speaking about the means by which he who has found out that something is happening, who has seen something wrong, and who wants to speak up about it, what ways they able to provide that report. And today we've looked at it. Today we are looking at it from both the internal and external parts. From the internal perspective, it's a process where an organization decides to internally host the reporting channels, while the external refers to an organization using a third party or external service provider to host its whistleblowing reporting. And both approaches have their pros and cons. And as you'll be hearing from the panelists who are seasoned people, you will hear how you can implement internally and how you can also implement using external service providers. This is very important because the Association of Certified Examiners, they told us that 43% of fraud was reported by whistleblower. In other words, for you to be able to find out if something is not working the way it should be working, whistleblowing is very important. But like we said, is how do whistleblowers report? And for us, what we've seen is that the more impersonal the reporting is, the better they are. What we mean by impersonal, the more you don't need a whistleblower, whether it's internal or external, the more you don't need a whistleblower to the person physically, the more you provide a whistleblower with what we like to call anonymity and confidentiality, the better the channel. So whether you are, running it internally or whether you are running it externally, you must look at it from this perspective. Number one, are these channels able to provide a whistleblower with the confidence that their identity will be protected? Are these channels to provide a whistleblower with the confidence that whatever they share or whatever they provide will be treated confidentially? And then finally, are we able, through the channels that we are providing, provide whistleblowers with that confidence that whatever they report treated and be treated on time, and that they can come back and monitor the progress of what they've reported? So let me recap again. Hosting internally or you are hosting externally, your reporting channels must deal with anonymity, it must deal with confidentiality, and it must provide a feedback loop so that the whistleblower can come back and ask you for progress on the matters that they reported. And let me close by saying what I said earlier. The more impersonal the reporting channels are, the better that they are. I want to mean by personal. Phone calls, forms, emails, or maybe mailbox. They work better than requiring whistleblower into an office or into a space to talk with somebody. So as we look at this, we discuss each of the internal works and the external hosting framework. Please just pay attention. I'm sure you will learn things that will help you to improve your whistleblower work and your whistleblowing policy within your organization. Thank you very much.
Viola, thank you so much. It's important. I think one of the key things more impersonal the channel of reporting is, the better it is, and then is for the whistleblower to actually blow that report or blow that whistle, make that report. So we'll be moving straight on into the next session where we'll be talking about whistleblowing systems in practice, internal management versus external hosting. Once again, whistleblowing systems in practice, internal management versus external hosting. And so we'll make our delectable panelists to talk on this topic for the second panel. And our first panelist is the founder and chief executive officer at TMSN Limited, a Nigerian boutique firm that specializes in governance, ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance, sustainability, and regulatory compliance. Prior to this, head of the legal and regulatory division at the Nigerian Stock Exchange, I was subsequently appointed as the executive director, regulation at the exchange. She was responsible for providing effective leadership to ensure that the exchange's policies, business operations, and its relationships with regulators, its members, issuers, and other stakeholders were in compliance with all applicable laws and regulations. She has a wealth of experience and solid track record across organizations, three continents, including with the United Nations International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, in The Hague, Netherlands, the United Nations Compensation Commission in Geneva, Switzerland, and top-tier law firms in Nigeria and New York. She has been involved in major regulatory initiatives, including as project director of the CBM-SEC Joint Task Force on the intervened bans from April to August 10. For 7 years, she was an attorney with the New York office of Simpson, Thatcher and Bartlett, a leading law firm with global presence. Represented regulated entities in their dealings with regulators, including the Office of the Comptroller of Currency and the Securities and Exchange Commission in the United States. She has over 30 years of professional experience. She has a law degree from Obafemi Awolowo University, graduating as the best female student in the Faculty of Law. I think that deserves a round of applause. Finished her school with first-class honors. Another one, please. In graduate best overall students. She also holds a degree from Harvard Law School, where she was a London H. Gummock Fellow at London School of Economics and Political Science, where she graduated with merit. At the London School of Economics, she was a British Council Scholar, and she's at both the Nigerian and New York bar. Please make welcome Tinua A. Award. Coming up next, someone who currently serves as officer at Union Bank of Nigeria, the bank's compliance framework ensuring adherence to regulatory requirements, policies, and ethical standards across all business units. She has extensive experience in regulatory compliance, audit, and risk within the banking and financial services sector. She is responsible for monitoring and implementing compliance programs, managing regulatory reporting, and providing guidance to the board active management on emerging regulatory developments. Her work ensures that the bank maintains transparency, mitigates risks, and upholds the highest standards of corporate governance. She holds a Doctor of Business Administration, that's a DBA, and a Master's in Business Research from Swiss Business School, Switzerland. It's a round of applause. She also remains an MBA from Lagos State University and a BSc in Management from the University of Port Harcourt. She's also a certified information security manager, a certified anti-money laundering specialist. A round of applause for that, please. That's more than well. The fellow of the Chartered Accountant of Nigeria, a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Taxation, and an honorary senior member of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria. Please welcome Abigail Palmer. And finally, Sean is none other than our second keynote, Adiola Adekunle. A round of applause. To moderate this session, we'll be calling up Mohammed Ogundir in the privacy page. I think they need to see it out here. We're not it with the first session. This final session will run for there about 40 minutes, wherein we'll delve into the topic, the final session with our panelists. We'll take a few questions from the room and also a few questions from those of us online. So please, to those of us online, make sure to use the slide function, drop your questions, ask as many questions as you would want, particularly related to the topic, please. But please feel free to engage and let's make this as interactive as well. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks so much, Alangye, for just and welcome to my panelists. Thanks for all the panelists that we have in the first session, all our attendees, at those 9 o'clock. We've listened to I talked about the engagement and all of that, and then also listening to underline to the second panel, which is of course the reporting pathways within our organizations, which is internal versus external posting. To begin with, and not also obviously too much time, we're moving on to start with the first question, which is to so you've been instrumental to implementing whistleblowing mechanisms in Nigeria, providing the implementation of whistleblowing XIGX to chairing the code of corporate compliance committee for MGC and FRC board. Sorry. What would you say, or what are the latest that you think you can share from your experience of what actually takes to tell about people creating whistleblowing?
Thank you very much. I'd like you to stand up PwC for letting us have this very top discussion. So I think that for whistleblowing framework, there are things we have to think about. You have to think about facilitation. So how do you facilitate disclosure? Like you know, facilitate it, the opportunity, like but close. Nobody wants to walk into an office. Somebody cannot stay there, so out in facilitate. The next one is protection of the risk. And when I was thinking about it on my knee here, I said, if you read the Bible as a storybook, I'm not as a good and you are looking at the story of the crucifixion of Christ, one of the things that you find there at the point in time, Christ says, according to the backstory, that if this couple pass over, let it pass. It means that the basic human instinct of self-preservation is there. So you need to design your own whistleblower channels and design your whistleblower system in such a way that the whisper, the tipping is actually also thinking about their self-preservation. Self-preservation around my job, my self-preservation around social connection. I don't know that. I didn't want anything to like that. So it designed with that. And finally, we designed with institutional accountability, which was, again, I think, going to what Adiola said, which is what happens when it's this. I have a whistleblowing channel, I have a whistleblowing channel, and then deciding going to the person. I have a whistleblowing channel, I have a whistleblowing, okay, you guys will see and you'll do an investigation. When it's I did an investigation. So we all know how this thing is. Once you have those three things and you design with those methods in mind, you will provide an appropriate. We can get into the conversation that right?
For that technology. So what would you say, in your opinion, that organizations should understand that the role that the foundational role that recently changed governance?
Okay. So I don't know who it was. I think it was the gentleman with the lovely cap. Okay, they don't have hats. Then I didn't call that it's gold when I was young. And you display my thing. But I think it's about over 40% of the list of fraud was discovered. I think in 2024 report of the Association of such type of graduates. It says 43% of the sample size of organizations we hit. 30% of these led to investigations concern and the survey's job. Only, I think it was 12% from external auditors, 30% from internal auditors. I think
40% for management. So that already tells you that if you are an organization that is interested in your reputation, an organization that is interested in keeping your corporate assets forward, an organization that is interested in having a good industry work for people that are ethical, you need to take something into serious. So that's my short answer to your question, because we have just a little time. I don't want to. I think those statistics speak for the.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for that. My next question is to that. When organizations begin to set up integrating systems, one of the earliest and most consequential actions they face is whether to manage the system internally or host it externally. What would you say are the core differences between the two models, and what should organizations really do when making that choice? Okay, the two core differences, or let me say the core differences, essentially is that in one instance, the people that are familiar with the people that are familiar with management, people who are familiar with the culture of the environment, they are the ones hosting the whistleblowing channel. So it's somebody's friend at the end of the day within the organization, somebody's colleague, somebody's desk that is hosting the channel. In the other part, which is the external one, people who are hosting the channel are people who are not familiar with people within the media. People who don't know the nuances of the organization. And so in that instance, the listener, because the people who manage the channels, they appear to be more independent. All right. It doesn't mean people who are internal can't be independent, but it also means that the people who are, when you host necessarily, people can be more independent. I think in making your decision, because neither of them is the silver bullet, right? But in making your decision, you must think about the culture that you have. Now, if culture already where it is difficult for people to speak, right? If the organization has a culture already where it is difficult for people to hear their opinion, then if that organization or the leaders of that organization decide to host their whistleblowing internally, then it's going to talk like this, all right? But if you understand the culture that it's difficult for people to talk, then what you need to do is consider an external party. But in addition to that, how you communicate your whistleblowing channels to your employees matter the most. Because you can have externally hosted whistleblowing channel that the employees don't change. Why? Because the communication between management and the people that are the intended users of the channels is not very, very good. And in doing that communication, I believe that you should bring people who are very independent. So it helps. It adds credit to the process. When a third party comes in and saying this is how the channels work, and when somebody that is internal comes in and they say this is how the channels work, it doesn't mean that the internal doesn't know what they are doing, right? It's just the normal perception of the human mind. And the user can look at it and say, if I make a report tomorrow, this guy, I recognize my voice. But when an external party comes, you say, well, this guy doesn't know me. The possibility of them recognizing my voice is, yeah. And so those are the things you should think about. So you think about your culture, and then you must carefully craft how you communicate your whistleblowing channel. Well, thank you very much for that. I feel that way. Okay, Abigail, my next question is for you. I'm looking at Abigail to the culture within the organization. The best community is particularly internal hosting space in particular. It's often built on familiarity of people, the context, the culture. From your vantage point as this chief compliance officer, what benefits that you see first time from operating whistleblowing internally?
Thank you very much, and thank you, PwC. So typically, what I would speak to would be being corporate partner. I have seen the mistakes internally and externally, and with internal system, and there could be management of that parent where the wishing to have grown, but again, somebody new opinion and is taking from. It's never the right of group. So yes, and that like it's the easy for which you're able to get your information, and then of course the third party on inside returns for that, but typically it's better and
take part in and I was making them reading. Measure that the same boat or work with somebody excellent. Also, they came from your bandwidth positive. Always, I mean, before already like you make them like a thing. Not to we maintain the something. So we need able to evolve at least and collaborate more with that way of thing. It's just the copy.
Okay, so for example, I can see you there are various the some of it somebody else in the extension and then it's also able to reviews and then the assessing economic and there are multiple challenges. See, just your corporate network, you have bills of a channel, you have video and then also because of the trust. Today, people would rather trust something that's so said than what is hosted and right first.
I'll back to your agenda. And still on the topic of external speed, the committee it's usually presented as gold standard. Maybe yet also allude to that role because it's historically independent, anonymous, and professional. From your expert perspective, what does the external most mean and mean solve and what we not solve? Okay, in terms of what it solves, I think we've already what it solves, right? It solves, it gives you what I would call impartiality, right? It provides the perception of confidentiality, it provides the perception of anonymity and everything that you need for a whistleblowing channel to work, right? In addition to that, it also, whether you like it or not, it also provides some form of credibility to say, we are not going to be apparent, right? XYZ is adding information doesn't sit with us. And it solves a cultural, one of the biggest questions, or one of the most common questions that I get asked anytime I'm implementing whistleblowing is, will they not recognize my voice? I answer it almost every time. Will they not, if I talk, my voice is unique, then you have to tell the person, the people are going to take your calls and not familiar with your voice. All right. And it solves that. But there's certain things that it doesn't solve. One, it doesn't solve action on the claim. Because if you're hosting externally, management still need what management wants the job with what but he has some ways of making it effective in that most external, when we host external, ask for people to forward certain reports, such that a report is about somebody who is a management staff, right? But that report will not be sent to anybody of that person's level or anybody below that person, for the authority and the person reports to, even almost to the board. Okay? But even at that, right, it doesn't show who is going to investigate, decision to resolve, and the decision to take action. What the other thing it doesn't solve is how it communicates learnings of a whistleblowing complaint and a whistleblowing process. That also sits with the management. So somebody has blown a whistle, we investigated, we've got it, it's won't implement these learnings. External whistleblowing doing something. But what it does is that it provides management with the right level of support. One example that I would like to close with is what somebody shared earlier about a utility company that uses whistleblowing channel to revenue loss. Imagine that people report that there's bypass, for example, and that entity decides not to take action. Whether it's hosted internally or it's hosted externally, you have don't take away management's responsibility to take actions on whistleblowing incident. But I think the final thing that is so, let me come back to what it's so, is that you see that feedback loop that is very, very important. External whistleblowing provides what I would call enrichment, because the whistleblower doesn't need to talk to their manager. They don't need to talk to their supervisor to be managing that. They can come back to the external party and say, I made a report on X, Y, and Z. What action I should take? In a proper context, that comes back in the external people managing that channel. What to management and say, give me updates on this report, right? Go to management 3 times.
and they can't provide updates. The management knows. Management must provide updates. Thank you very much. Now, still on that topic, really. My next question would be, I mean, as we hear from the conversation so far, we've seen that sport really context really matters. What works for the different from invest, you not necessarily work with what's national. So, well, I mean, from a corporate governance standpoint, those should drive organization stories of street here. Okay, so I think that there's two main factors that drive type of achievements. I think you need to look at the structure of the organization. So a 10% organization, and you can say, well, customer and external, needs to be open channel. It's maybe a very big cost consumption of the organization. On the other hand, if you don't have an external channel, you need to you don't expect it. You know, the best is to get it out. You don't want to or what like because we know ourselves. So in a situation like that, the context of an organization nonsense. I'll give you another example. You are in a one-person organization. You have warehouses spread all over Nigeria. And the kind of work that maybe some sort of family that it's very knowledge to understand what you are doing at the times of if you don't happen there. It's like what you don't get. So in a situation like that, you may say, well, we'll keep it internal, but then without you will have people who just exhibiting the pipeline of people getting the market, and we'll have people in which we gather from and that end of it. So it really depends on the number of people playing for the organization. This depends on the risks that you are trying to deal with. What types of risks are you seeing for it works that you are trying to use your whistleblower apparatus to try and escape those risks? I think this let's dealt with by people who are internal, as I mean, it's like the university just gets I think part of it is also the culture of being an organization. I think that you're right that is it a very geriatric type of culture, everybody is yes, smart, culture, one person that is one step ahead of. It's a flat type of culture where people see what's speak. It's a culture where leadership has always said whistleblowing is not even don't see it as a cost issue anymore. We see it as a branding issue. To be able to say, whistleblower, to be able to say in this organization, that's against the risks of misconduct and corruption and all of these things. So all of those things relate to what I'm saying. Finally, of course, there's cost. To hire people is not in as we say. So, the number one mistake.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think from the conversation so far, it's clear now if that's culture cannot be very precise. And really that's one of the things that we already have in the week, even though in the first session, compared to the one where in the session at the moment. So you're not having a really great policy or paper. What practical steps do you keep organizations to adopt things and then is strong okay?
Yes, so I'll talk about something at the top when it stakes to enshrine the whistleblowing policy and then the mechanism with the board of directors involved and engaged. The board was instilling one thing in the statement, but you said something here, which are going to them. So the board was acting with the policies all the time. So the whistleblowing, so a party whistleblowing policy have whistleblowing madman. They're two different documents. So the board must approve those documents. The board must attest to these documents. And the attestation must take place in the bank. Everybody must attest to it. So you must know that it's a policy. We must know that the work policy exists. And we must also ensure that you are able to speak up. Now, it's also important to have that. So I'll give an example from real time. It's also important to ask that this is reiterated at every meeting. So at the executive level, the aim to speak about whistleblowing is very deep to our heart. At the management committee level, it's there. Town halls is very clear. You understand? So it's important that they not only know, they see it, and they can tell that there's management support. I think what's also important is that because, it's quite the right organization, it's also important to create awareness and sensitization. So all the time. So as new people come in, they are aware that there is a policy and this policy works. And then even for the people, so when you just say you are doing an internally managed system or you are outsourcing it, they must check that these systems are effective and they work. Right? And from time to time, even the should test to make sure that I'm blowing the whistle and it's getting to where it should go to. Because if I have beautiful things, you have policy, you have everything, it's not effective. When you see that there's been a drop, you need one. So data is available, you're looking at month 1, month 5, month 2, month 3, have a new, or something new. You might begin to create awareness, sometimes one of the group funds, they come to talk to the buy, you are global area, and everybody. You need to go to this. So in union, but you see something, you say something, and when they instead, you do something about it. You don't see at saying, do something, and then tell something. And then also with respect to our investigation, and investigators know that they must be open. You don't go there and take people's bias and say this is what a friend that was also in short. Because today, in the industry, even when you do anonymous study, and we tell you that, how am I sure? But the business is coming from my IP. So everybody is very careful because I think some time ago, somebody said me, anonymous study, and someone mentioned that you had one that they said, how can it's anonymous? How do you know it's me? So people are typically very careful about being able to identify. And you also see the culture playing the game where somebody will say, even if this report, I need to extend it. Want to start in just caution. So there are several things that move in the body, and I think I'll just
Thanks about not to be traits, so like testing of painting best of those whistleblowing the system at work to ensure they're very effective at work station. What would you say that one signs that the current model is no longer because the
I'll be the other saying that it's trying to sell where you have doing the number of cyber boxes. It's like this, and you've actually conquered that list of the light. And during we sometimes system and everything else that is working, it's fine that people don't trust your system. And so you need to use the data to test what it is. And I think she also mentioned some of it. So that would be one of it. Well, I think the other one where you don't get anything and it's in the exit exactly like they start telling this and that. That's a clear indication that despite the fact that you had the two places there, felt that maybe it wasn't this space. And by the way, at the minister, you know what's happening with the organization. Don't think that the organization. So that's another thing. I think for me, the last indication would be just a general sense of outputs which you can see your organization that you engage with your people with. You can tell from phone up when you are engaging with it. As a you're like CEO, you got a town in your regular talk about the problem response that you have and all those things that has to ride up. They are not responding. Talk about making you to have situational awareness and also have your control. Looking at this, what's the temperature around the soup going here? People using it. What are you hearing in the corridors? I have a colleague that every day he basically executive floor and walk around the strips And once she walks around, there are things that, yeah. So whatever it is that is your thought for hearing, you will hear and you'll be able to know this is how working. Maybe they don't like the external, or they don't like the internal, or they feel that someone who second games and all of that. And the last one, since I'm talking about retaliation, is where you're at the what 2 hours. Is where you start getting tips that are just, somebody. It's obvious that people are just walking about, like maybe they're walking about it, the reward, and so they're trying to do like it. If I did like it, anybody, maybe you should have great stress of people. And if you have a short, that goes to is another reason for which I'm saying, let's look at this step. I would not. It's our honest. Is it such that maybe the time for retaliation? So there are all sorts of things. You can say, if the person is fired, then once there, we're going to review it because of that. So you get all these people fired 1 year, 1 day. So you need to use data and a lot of text to figure out what happened.
And thanks a lot, Maddie. Thanks for we're gradually getting to the end of the conversation. To our panelists, at this moment, I think I must use it very important to recognize that this conversation really started leading. While attendees, physically share a lot of time by being very straight for this session, we asked them to submit questions. We've selected 3 questions, which we need to the team of what our discussion today. And I have one question for each of my panelists. I'll start with you. Says I just mentioned the thing about your Lord. So I just want to that so that we leave from there. What would you share as an experience on how effective you rewards and incentives and when you incorporate organizations and financial institutions?
And I'll speak just a quick about me and understand more. I say lots of people want to reward actually, like what you there has been a price case in 1 year for some sort of perhaps the employers still the job look people will stick on me. You typically like to this
like then take a look at your and not to usually treat management or executive management that aspects do you commit to with giving to time or should that be immediate during the bond of direct?
I don't think that there is a yes or no as question. I think you really want it. So it depends on the personality of your position. Management is still responsible for the organization. So I think that the best thing to do is the strength of the architecture of the whistleblower. What you don't want at the time that you get the issue is when you start going out, going to giving the government to have access. So you can say the little is about this level of data, perhaps they can have access. But if you look at corporate governance form, differentiated, you will see that it says that the audit committee that actually has the responsibility for maintaining the active like according to the corporate governance. So the audit committee, its powers, can decide for certain levels management will have access, for other levels management will not have access. Me personally, actually, if people has gone to my head and asked me, I really just management not having access because I think it's a habit to while appreciating management is responsible for the organization, there might instances where the corporate under rights caveats were now going to
Thanks a lot. Marty. That's why I asked questions to let them back. The audience in the group are those online. If you have questions, please be one item. I feel that I'm coming to that now. Just the gaps. Let's get last mission. I feel like so I feel that I mean spoke culture,
So now, thinking about technology, here for the exams, they are the new technologies bringing in questions and everything. How should organization think about the role of technology in the future of whistleblowing? All right, thank you. Thanks a lot, Mohammed. Let's talk about the technology that we're using now and for whistleblowing data. If you read the association as reports very carefully, you realize that more people have provided tips via websites than even via email. And the reason is very, very important. The reason is that you can log on to a website and the website does not take any information about you, about where you're joining from, and use the website everywhere you like. So that already shows you that technology is very important in creating channels for whistleblowing. So we have email, right? We have phone, toll-free line. I always recommend toll-free lines because you must make it easy for the whistleblower to report. Imagine somebody wanting to report, but they first need to recharge. Just think about that for a while. That's why it's important that I'm using this toll-free. Now, when you have this infrastructure in place, right, then you can now think about applying artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence though, in whistleblowing is that it can help you summarize cases faster, especially for instances where the conversations are impersonal. So the person you're sending an email, the person uploads something on the website, you can summarize it. You can bring out the key points and you can ensure that you have it in they can help you have a broader view of the data you are looking at. But in instances where you are having conversation with people directly, right? That's via a phone call. The idea is that it can help you summarize your minutes faster, right? The conversation can summarize. But you must do that also very carefully. That AI must be training to only work within your environment so that it is not hallucinating. In addition to hallucination, you can bring other things into the being reported. So in adopting AI as a technology, you have to make sure that it is operating within an enclosed such that what is interacting is anything that you have provided for it, and it's not going on in different things onto that conversation. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'll give that. And then I go back to so all the records. If I think I can I'm going back to you. I'm very back to you. So please, all right.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. Thank you. Anybody, I'm in close spot. That I like. What I can about how we deal with. My first point, I'm not sure. So much about it. And for me, to have that, look at it. We're not truly investigation. I my solution. Have subs to get that. The investigation itself. How stand up the conduct that investigation so much important. Now, we talked about the which is made up of leading and jokes. For example, the case in fight at the head of the advocates, I'm the one that I'll stay report. That I can report. Now, the external parties are really conducted. Most of the information and issue of data and they go. How do we handle it? Something that we have the escalation in the reporting line up. How exactly do clear? So, I think. I'm like, did you get it out there? The tech and it's us to be with it that way. In the interest of time, it might not be next. But I just need to set and set on it down. My guidelines manager, and people in the company, because that's the idea I would say. The implementation is still going to be done by it's you mentioned self-management can do the self-management strategy. All these studies still increase. That is your the external market. For example, when we talk about the big four, that people have so much confidence in, that they can't stay on it. Now, you have done the job, but we should have. Now, somebody has reported it is. It's first time, second time, third time. Management is not done it. The query, what exactly can you still do? Or people so that way, so that we keep up, we see something. So my final comment here has to do with that. Is there anything called street play? Because it's about instances where people investigation, so you don't get to see anything at the end of it. And from my experience, I'm saying that my management company, therefore, for you to see that, how do we balance? How do you continue to report it to actually street walk? Is there anything like it or specific? Right. Thanks to look at that our station. So I think my panel is one so I can see so I'll let that go first.
Yeah, so I'll just speak if it's dedicated. So the examination having been done would highlight it by the allowed to compare the all some document people requested there that we have been started. It will possibly be shall be done. So there is there are rules for engagement, there declared of that your clear policy and we ensure that it's when I said something about ensuring that you have investigate people-minded professionals and perhaps experienced to one behaviors so it's completely different from when I've been a red light decision where you appear to have evidence so that you have zero this is what happened. So that aspect of the investigation will still be done by the I was trying to now I'll share an example. So there was one of the discussions that we got and Whistleblowing had done its preliminary investigation. And of course, we had said something that for unsubstantiated evidence. So we are not able to substantiate it or anything. But there was some issue. And we just reading the article tell that there is some evidence of this. So why did the result is taken? It must ought to be wrong. And remember that the both sides of the and so if I against those results and the process of investigation, it found that there is a type otherwise I've sent to this and this instead. So without very good but on the team, you find that a lot of experience, the wealth of knowledge comes to bear from any institution. But you said what was done, same and not time department rates. I think that don't give up on the fact that you have done the rate at the medical nothing like that. It must be at it on science.
Thank you very much for that.
So that's like I always say about control functions. Take control function before. You are not the final authority of things. And so you have to get comfortable with the fact. Sometimes we will recommend something and it doesn't get done. And sometimes we will not know the reason why it gets done. And if you are confident and you cannot get comfortable with that uncomfortable place, then it's a very difficult job to there will be investigations, present your reports, you have the oversight of what that has what wrong with a laser identity over the system commits, and for some reason they are not accepting what is the clear thought of your own issue. I think what you need to know is that you've done your job. I think the other thing in that situation is that there should be going manual honesty, the general framework into the I'm short to a to those who do the investigation. Not necessarily explaining to them, oh, didn't check your patients also X or Y, but maybe some just general, just not some avenues of feedback within and the join to the investigators and the deciders of what to, so that helps just avoiding relationship and learning both through body language of what the person is saying as well actually state how it is that and make it work better. I think the final thing is that for us not to assume that because something was on a way we think it should be done, and we have incidents, very, very detailed incidents that it's malified, that there is a fine. And sometimes they're just other business risks while it's done. Again, what I would always say is it have the policy and administrative place those different outcomes to come. Because it went a different place and then something has been happening recently. That's when this one is where you understand what I mean. If the board of its committee or have final authority, I think that there is a for their discretion. But that discretion exercise context of whistleblowing work also contained with how we exercise that so that it's not capricious and it's not the way that you make me involve you how you on that.
Thanks, thank you, Dr. Timothy. I know.
I just want to add something. Okay, so over the part I talked about, I think it's also important where so that disclosures can be completely anonymous. The website can be full disclosure. Or you're able to, and maybe a full disclosure or partial disclosure. It would be nice to even acknowledge by saying thank you for being the whistle. Thank you for speaking your document. I have instances where you're not able to point and people of the political subject and we just see that there must have been some events like there are things you do on storytelling. Like, so to let out this story, and when it goes out, you can tell that we are during a case when we are also instructing and advising a great point to the so that storytelling moves to the entire nation and advise. And sometimes you probably want to be sure like this is what I do research on. So these are some of the other areas to ensure that they have respect in the system and trust the system. Can I just say something? Just anyone, it just I escaped my mind when we were talking about the now. So I also believe that external people have to do an investigation. Yes, a lot of the time, yes, it gets done, and with the reason why you have credentials, many of the most recent practices, it's actually the external investigation. And how those students we would like to our involved and consult it would be interesting to know the Nigerian ones because the Nigerian and we're always meeting for the
Sure, there is not.
So there was a case in my station where the whistling staff was a disclosure that was not exactly it was completely
Yeah. I think that's what must be clear and verified. It's not active spoken. It's when people in actually what it is. It is better when senior people that use an external investigation because it then helps either it and also be independent of marketing. And I don't be perception that they are not being influenced. I don't know whether that because some people say, oh, it's because in our need to investigate the market that be right. So then you bring external party out here. So it's definitely it's not captured. So it's a direct question. I can't speak for other people, but I can speak for this matter, right? And it's that when the case has been reported for feedback a few times, I've seen that the radio has not we've had interventions at different levels. And I'm saying up to the board level. All right, to say this is not going to reported, we ask for X, Y, Z number. Nothing happening. What's in it? In those instances where we've engaged, and it's serious engagement, in those instances where we found out that in those instances, the internal auditors didn't know how to go about the investigation. And so we have to sit down with them. Try this way, try this way, try this way, do this. And one day, we're able to, express some breakthrough. So for us, like I said, I'm speaking for myself, right? For us, it's not just about we reported and then it's not. In fact, if we sit down, if you host your whistleblower panel and realize that you are not reporting, you probably see me in your office. Or you say, that's in your office. Because we want to find out why people are not reporting. So it's that of it's like we have need, yes, we have need so and then we come and they expect this side the order it's very very financial. Also we think about this way, they have to that not for people and that does things that we but yeah. Thank you. My comments and so it's a language when she was asked about the law, said that in the house, the shop. And based on what discussed, but with rewarding the donor, there's no way we know because if people are people subjective, I want chat with not no matter how many it's when it's grown to now going to first panel session. Now, the speaker at top on behalf of federal executive at going that the state owns of the government. In it is being pushed that mandatorily there should be no law protection. It is the report, no matter how many years. Like now, I work with the PwC. There is usually a regulatory compliance like the net portfolio whereby they ask for whistleblowing policy. They have a platform and they ask for evidence that whistleblown, evidence of what was done. And if there's a constant monitoring, not just whistleblowing, compensation or rewards they actually have contacting that people were escalating it. So the escalating is a risk. So at the end of the day, I want more revenue for you. Yet, what is coming next? If that reward part can be encouraged and need to know how many it takes, I begin to encourage people.
Like you said, on that, so 90% of our users are naming us. They don't know who they are, and people are not really coming forward. So I'm not sure it's not we go on to it, but how do we put in clean up as a short? People are skills, and there's no point that we can hold on to whoever is to do work. So it's not the process and ensuring that the process drives the expected output of able to achieve.
Thank you very much, Daniel. But I think that's the big point that this has been very fascinating about that inside submissions. First, beyond this, it's doing terrible fault. Not without law. My experience is that what is when their concerns are not addressed, them sought to external whistleblower. That said, my question. One of the greatest doing of whistleblowing is retaliation. That's undesirable action taken against somebody who begs. And retaliation is internal. Adopted and deployed. It's studied within the limited framework of two member parties involved in whistleblower organization. And madams, in your organization, so many policies. In your policies of how do you address and let's take out anti-retaliation policy. That's what. Does your policy have
depend on gag orders arising from, maybe disclosure agreements that maybe override which brain rights, puts the parent straight on age. I just want to know whether you have local area. It's not disclosure agreement or it puts the ban on making it disclosure.
Okay. So, which in my view, does not have a something on this. But asking the question, I actually was like, we actually need to get the policy for like a one by consult trial. But to be very less serious. We all to for did have a super policy was external posted. Although I did have anti-intervention measure with the policy. So our policy complied with, and that's why when you were speaking from, I brought out complied with principle 19, which is around non-retaliation, the possibility of compensation, and treating people if they were retaliated, and all of them. Very robust policy. But it's not only about the policy, it's also about the cultural willingness to do the right thing. You can have all the beautiful policies that the man Bill said. If you don't want to do the right thing, you will not find a way around it. Because these things, policies are made for people, not people for policy. So that is what I think about that.
Okay, so yes, we have it in the policy, and then so that actually narration policy clearly stated, and that's why every staff attests to it. So you have the option to do body. And with retaliation may not even be you are dismissed, it may not be that, or that you were removed from neighbors immediately. Maybe we go into the lunchroom, for example, right? And everybody sees you. A vibrant conversation was taking place. You make it a scene. Everybody cleared their lunch out of this. That silent treatment, it's something that we also very seriously. So it's there, and there's nothing for non-disclosure. We don't have anything last those, so you can speak up. You can report the CC, you can report the board, you can report him.
Okay, but am I internally if the target of my disclosure is FTC for the D?
I think the question she's answered is I understand.
So I'll give you an example. Like in the institution I worked in, like was something against the third party. And it was reported rating. It's external. It was external. It's went like right.
I need to clarify with God made, right? When we say X, it means that there is a third party from global. And you should pay a challenge. Exactly into manage it. All right? Not so that first, that's not a bloody issue. When we say internally, within the entity, there is an office or there are channels that people within the entity post. Those they don't have. This is the thought, the touch, but I've answered it. So, I've answered it. And just listen to me. We have as PwC, anybody employed has access to our whistleblowing channel. That is not hosted by us. It is hosted by third party. Internally, we have anti-retaliation, anti-body, antis that you can. We have, right? That one the anti. You only want to know about the anti. Or the anti, you have it. So when we consult, it is what was it? Magna Carta. If somebody comes to us, come out also need us, we'll ask you for your points, and then we'll read your points. Find things there that will be made will not report anonymity enforce confidentiality, will not protect the user against retaliation or any harm. We should note it to you before we, right? Because it's very important. So not only our employees protected, we also ensure that the people that we collaborate, they create a that environment in their space. Like, it's and I'll move on. So I will ask. So my understanding is better with whistleblowing and the sufficiency of retaliation, so anonymity, how many action what happens. So I'm just thinking of something now where it just came to me. Might be automate and it has triggers, right? Reports goes to a particular person. It started to like their robocall or some, and then there's an automatic trigger that sent to PwC or sent to the MD, sent, and then asked for, so there's no select feedback, and then they send a reminder after 72 hours. After 3 reminders, October, the studies to the British engineers, search yes. I'm not having a chance to switch. And just to answer that, when you look at the NCC, that's important. No, but look at all the regulators. And let's talk about CBN, for example. You look at SCC, in that guideline, they also provide their own, like CBN will say, if you report in your back, something. The same thing for the credits. NRC will say, if you report and you feel you're not done any. The same thing for the insurance industry. If you report it, they don't think to be good, already like on. So those is exist in different areas, especially within the private sector, right? And also that's why we're having this conversation, and we're glad that people will represent also so they can hear some of these things and help them to think about the reporting channels that we need in the public space. So we have that. The talent topic that is the robocall, and it's something that it can be automated. The automation is fine, but the most said, and one of the things that I've been investigated at repressing, right, and those kind of want to talk to imagine who can I, if they call and the person didn't say, are you on it? The person called me say, I'm like saying, so that person is and say is the word person sounded on the phone and spent about 5 minutes reassuring the person that right. So yes, we use technology, but you see, most whistleblower confidence comes from usually that I used to create sector, but I was supposed to. The funniest investigation. Somebody will investigate that was. But people are anonymous. We're doing investigation, I got to go. Yeah. And there was no way to contact each other. And walked into my office and said, sorry, pardon me, I joined us from the US. I'm going to speak mildly English. Said, let me know then I'll say that. What do you need? And I'm like, no. He said, no, I'm not anonymous again. And person brought documents that I helped us to prove what we needed to prove. What I'm trying to make is when they see action, when they have people that they know they are taking act ourselves, sometimes they can come forward and provide more insights and more documents that will be expected. Thank you very and very much for the line. Thank you to God. They can think at the job. They need a very good attention so far. I mean, it's probably and he's sort of a kilogram. Like how pretty. Which is you're telling him and a good don't make it.
No need to we go to the usually it grows. It goes to the space in a shop that block it from Jerry. Signal, thank you. It's very what I mean. Again, you're the camera quite working at the box. Forget you don't see me. So it's just the three times I got on the God. But still that you start the very subtle steering and it's stopping on your first to you and checks and products that woman is really about to what doing. You there I started the water. Okay, yeah, okay. Okay. Just part of this coming like no more. I go around. Yeah. Dr. Methods. Win, which can I thank you very much. So I don't know what there is not my good day. So like that's the guidance. But all right, thank you very much. Very insightful. Benefits of having it study internally, also trusted externally. Of things. At this point, we'll be moving on briefly to the closing remarks. It will be delivered by Chairman of our partner and head in enterprise risk and ESG services, PwC, among the post partner of the event. A round of applause.
Win. And I can't thank our analyst enough. It was very engaged and definitely feel the fire in the room. Thank you. I'm sure those also enjoyed that last panel as well. So our keynote speaker, Honorable Aki, that joined us virtually and presented his keynote address, ably presented by his colleague here. Thank you so much for joining us today. Panelists, Godwin, Oyacholam, Tino Adeawe, and Abigail Guapaman of Omanu. Thank you very much for honoring our and for sharing your experience and thoughtful perspectives with us. These two things have been truly enriching, and as you all said, they've encouraged highly relevant conversation around the state of Whistleblowing Nigeria. In our first panel, we examined the current state of Nigeria and reflected on what its progress means for the future of whistleblower protection and accountability in the country. As the Honorable Speaker mentioned, we are hopeful whistleblowing bill will be signed into law by 2027. By next year's whistleblowing. So we've looked at that date down, and we will be holding our honorable very qualified to make it up interesting. In our second panel, we explored how organizations can design whistleblowing systems that are not only operational, but genuinely trusted by people they are developed to serve. And I think it's important to mention here that whether hosted internally or externally, the important thing is that there is a rigid system in place to protect the whistleblower and to ensure that people are confident of what to do. I would like to highlight three important things today. First, legal and policy development to strengthening the national whistleblowing framework. Our legislation is encouraged to continue pushing this envelope until the bill is passed. It's clear that where this whistleblowing to law, we have the potential to actually reduce corruption about over 30% come 2030, and that's a massive shift of that needle. Second, organization wait for legislation before taking meaningful action. They can and should actually build internal systems within the company that encourage people without any repercussions and that respond to concerns fairly, consistently, without any favoritism. Third, of whistleblowing. People are more likely to report concerns when they believe that is safe, impartial, and capable of producing meaningful results. And so it's important that even as we have done these whistleblowing cases, we actually communicate what we've done. People can see that actions have been taken. Sometimes things are happening, but we don't communicate it, and people are not aware, then they believe that nothing is happening, and that's not doing anything as far as the whistleblower is concerned. It is in spirit that I am pleased to announce that our latest publication, The State of Whistleblowing in Nigeria, Policy Gaps and the Case for Legislation, is now available. A round of applause for it. Which takes an honest look at where Nigeria stands today, having the achievements and shortcomings of the current whistleblowing policy, draw real cases of whistleblowers who are paying a heavy price for speaking up, and case for why a robust legal framework is no longer optional, but is now a necessity. It also offers practical considerations for public and private sector organizations seeking to build environments where speaking is genuinely safe. We hope this publication will contribute meaningfully to national conversation and serve as useful resource for policymakers, both executives and practitioners working to strengthen their institutions. Copies will be made available to all participants in the coming days as we get them printed out. On behalf of PwC, I want to appreciate our esteemed speakers, the forensics team that put this together, the participants, both those here in our facility and those that joined us virtually. Thank you for attending and for participating actively in this webinar. We remain committed to supporting institutions in their whistleblowing frameworks and broader governance processes, and we look forward to continuing this conversation in future editions of our annual whistleblowing events. Thank you once again, and we wish you a productive day and safe journey back to your home.
At this point, just present some analysts, and your chairman will lead us of presenting. Would like to call us first.
Win. Let's take it here, sense. Yeah, well, that's what we do.
All right, so first call on Godwin. We need first. Okay. I'm to know the outputs. Morning or good. I need to work. What this should not make it going to open. Right. Okay. Yep. Skip it, but it probably not a video. Okay. Okay, that's it. Win. It's the pump. Young back. So reality product is actually this particular. Okay. It's about this of that is in first. But okay. Also look ever. Next we like to cover talking on win. I will be there. No, benefits of win. And lastly, tomorrow is win.